thought you were making is all going to be spent on attorney's fees. And I don't care if I win or lose. I just want you to spend money. You see? So all this dark energy that you're bringing toward me, I've alchemically converted that energy into money. That's exactly what I've done.
Only Joe Rogan can bring on a degenerate conman into his studio, encourage and entertain his whack theories, and then turn on him after he gets exposed for being a fraud. It seems like Joe's always the last one to figure it out these days. Billy Carson appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience last year in June to discuss his theory of the Anunnaki, a group of alien gods who led an ancient advanced civilization and created
Even with
us
the Cash
humans
Patel
to
stuff,
mine gold, which
he wasn't quick
naturally
enough to actually
Rogan took at
catch
face
him on
value.
anything.
Except what Rogan didn't
Oh, there's
realize
nothing
at
in the
time
Epstein
was
files
that
you
he
want
was
to know
entertaining
about.
a mentally ill lunatic who literally sells potions on his website. I'm sorry, did nobody on Joe's team think to check out the guy's website before booking him? It's called forbiddenknowledge.com. So it's safe to say that Rogan's infamous bullshit detector has well and truly been smashed into 1,000 pieces and disappeared from the face of the planet.
It's one of those things where it's very unfortunate when people get caught with their pants down. And I'm not an expert in many things, but the things that I am an expert on, you could wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning and ask me about those things. Like martial arts or comedy. I could give you an expert version of reality. It seems like he does not have that, and he is a wonderful talker, and it's a lot of fun. I like watching his videos. I love all that ancient history stuff, and even the most ridiculous tinfoil hat aspects of ancient. It's fun.
It's entertainment.
But when he was on with you, it was quite apparent that you are an actual expert in the Bible and in many religious texts, and that he didn't necessarily have the facts straight.
Okay, so I'm going to take you guys through all the juicy details of this beef between conman Billy Carson and biblical scholar Wesley Huff, because they actually had a debate late last year after Billy's appearance on JRE. And to say that Wes wiped the floor with this guy is a massive understatement. Wes basically unbuttoned Billy's shirt, unbuckled his belt, unzipped his pants, and stripped him naked for the world to see how full of shit he really is. And as homoerotic as that sounds, it was actually fucking hilarious. In fact, it was so bad that Billy has apparently launched a legal action against 5 people related to this debate in an effort to steal back the narrative and save his livelihood. He's effectively trying to silence them. Seriously, if you guys want to have a laugh, stick around to the end where I go through a couple of clips from his unhinged 3.5-hour rant on a live stream after the debate got published in December. The guy has a full-on meltdown. But we can't let Rogan get away with this. As much as I credit him for getting someone like Wes Huff on the podcast, who's an actual expert in ancient texts so that he can clarify the record and explain why Billy Carson is a fraud, Rogan has a tendency to exploit mentally ill conspiracy theorists just for clicks and then turn on them once they get exposed for all the things they said while they were in his studio. Just ask yourselves, did we really need an expert to tell us this guy was full of shit?
Have you talked to Terrence Howard? Do you know his theory about how planets are created? That it's just things ejecting from the sun over billions and billions of years, and that there's a Goldilocks zone where you can create life.
Right.
And that's where the people are.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
It makes
Shout
sense
out to
that
Terrence Howard, because I just talked to him a couple hours ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so we were talking about wave conjugations and everything.
Me up for like 3 days. I left his podcast for 3 days. I was like, God damn. First of all, how the is he so smart? Like, how would you ever imagine that a dude who's an actor on a television show or in a movie is that smart? Like freaky smart.
You honestly could not make this shit up. Joe Rogan testing Terrence Howard's theories with now disgraced Billy Carson is peak JRE. All we need now is for Joe to convince ChatGPT that we're all lemmings forced into slavery by the Anunnaki, and my 2025 bingo card will be complete. But for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, let me get you up to speed. Billy Carson's theory is that these ancient deities called the Anunnaki were advanced ancient aliens from a planet far, far away called Nibiru. They came to Earth thousands of years ago in search of gold. Now, supposedly, gold was what they needed to stabilize their planet's atmosphere, cause science, so they came down to Earth,
in the moment I wasn't
genetically
nervous,
engineered
but watching this now I'm nervous because I realize this is like a bad idea.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, live worldwide.
Ever have a moment where you were actually scared?
Oh, all the
Where
time.
was that?
Well,
What's the
okay.
scariest one?
I mean, personally, probably getting arrested by Border Patrol.
So you didn't pay the $5,000 to the coyote, but you paid the $10,000 to the government.
I probably should pay the coyotes back. I'm thinking, holy shit, they stole this car. And then I look around, I look in the rearview mirror, and there's a cop trailing us. That was a classic example of just me taking it too far in the field with the documentaries.
Even when you put this up, cops never got a hold of you.
No, they might after this podcast, though. I'm more scared of Scientology than any other subgroup in the world.
Really? Do you have any interest? I have some friends I can introduce you.
I have an extreme interest in Scientology, but I also have an interest in being alive.
You ever seen this?
Is it a breakdown of it?
Oh, dude, I love the fact that you're seeing this for the first time.
Let's make a Channel 5 video. I would do it.
Oh, I would love to see it.
A lot of people would be upset with that.
Channel 55. 5 is the best number.
His production's actually kind of insane. I've not seen his videos.
I feel I'm supposed I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me.
Adam, what's your point? The future looks bright.
My handshake is better than anything I ever signed. Right here.
You are a one-of-one?
My son's right about it.
I don't think I've ever said this before.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back in the country's greatest state.
Greatest state.
I think so.
Really?
Florida.
And you're saying this living in LA?
Yeah. I've only lived in LA for a year and a half, but I think I might have a Floridian future.
You do? You may have it.
I like it. I like Key Biscayne. I like Orlando, Tallahassee, Jacksonville.
But not south.
It's okay. I like Fort Lauderdale. Miami's a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, for me too. I don't know if I could do
Miami's
Miami.
wild.
But the right place is Fort Lauderdale, in my opinion. Because if you want to go to Miami to do something, you're 45 minutes away. You want to go to Palm Beach, 45 minutes away. Orlando, 3. You can have lifestyle here, water, all the good stuff that comes with it, but that's interesting. We'll talk about the LA stuff. But let me tell you how I feel about you, okay? And it's very important because I have a 13-year-old son, okay, Patrick, who has your personality, okay? And he is extremely curious. He loves politics for whatever reason. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. And I think you're one of the most important voices for the younger audience. And here's why. Because I think you're going through a journey which you kind of, you have your own opinions and they're strong, but also you're developing it as you're going through the process by actually going to the place. Instead of seeing what the news is telling us, you're like, nah, I'm gonna go see what you guys are doing. Mm-hmm. And you've been to what? You've been to Miami Beach during COVID.
Definitely.
Old Block, Chicago. Philly Street, Kensington, the whole fentanyl place that you went to. San Francisco, George Floyd protest in Minneapolis. Chaz, which became this special thing during COVID, and in Seattle. You swam across the Rio Grande.
Yeah,
phenomenal,
bad
very
choice.
impressive. Yeah, bad choice. Anti-vaccine protest. You went to Israel and Tel Aviv for the protest. Cockfighting in Mexico. Connecticut, Kia, you were in the car with the Kia boys.
Yes.
While they're stealing, you have a mask on, you're going with them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some crazy stuff you've done. And it's one of those shows that if you watch one episode, guys, you could get stuck watching 2 hours worth of content. You do such a good job. And
He has
you don't put your
incredible
opinion in,
content.
you just ask, what do you think? What do you think? How do you feel about this? I just want to say, great job on what you've done with Channel 5. I think prior to that, it was what? All gas, no brakes,
And
right?
I have some good news. I'm actually reacquiring All Gas No Brakes.
Oh,
of
no
tomorrow.
shit.
Yeah, we used a
Okay.
quarter of the proceed from our new film, Dear Kelly, to make the acquisition of our first child, All Gas. So I'm going to make that announcement probably in the coming days, but I'm going to be in control of both Channel 5 and All Gas and the entire catalog.
I love that. So, for the audience that maybe doesn't know, backstory, how did you say, I'm going to go out there and do this? How did this happen?
Well, I had a really great teacher back in the day. I had a journalism course in high school. I had a teacher named Calvin Shaw, and he just inspired me to, pursue journalism as a career path. For me, the coolest thing about being a journalist is you get to be in the front row seats for all the things that you want to witness in the world. Whether it be a political event, you get to dive into a subculture because everybody wants coverage, everybody wants to be heard. And if you can be a medium for them to get their message out there, you can go wherever you'd like.
Yeah, in today's marketplace, as a citizen journalist, it's almost you have more credibility than the actual journalist that's sitting in front of the camera speaking. You're like, no, I'm going to the street. I'm going to go see what's exactly going on. versus what you're seeing it out there. And I think that's been a game changer, right? For a lot of people that have been doing this. Was there anybody else that was an inspiration for you? 'Cause are you a 97 baby?
Yeah, I was born in 1997, 4 years before 9/11, right when the internet first came around, the first iPod.
So who was that person? Like 97, YouTube starts in 03, 04. So when did you start consuming YouTube content?
Oh man, YouTube content? Well, probably as soon as I got on the internet. But I came online during like the Chocolate Rain, Charlie Bit My Finger, 4chan era. So the online subcultures were still being formed. But as far as like the first citizen journalist that I was into, I was mostly into comedians at first, like Sacha Baron Cohen. Even early stuff like Kasim G was really good. There was a really fringe show called Shams de Baron or Brushstrokes with Norman Vanemi that was like a graffiti adjacent interview show where this guy would go to art shows dressed as like a breakdancer and kind of like pretend to be a high art customer.
Yeah.
You know, high-end art
Yeah,
customer.
yeah.
And some of that stuff was just hilarious to me. I didn't put the journalism pieces together until I went to college for it and I had that professor.
Interesting. I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen to me is dude, what he did with, what was that, HBO? Was it HBO or Max, where he goes to a couple rallies? He has this guy teaching him. He's an Israeli. He's going to train him how to fight off gay men. You know which one I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Some of the stuff the guy did that he was able to convince. He sits there, he says, so, you know, what was it, the Ali G one? You know, that's my favorite one. When he says, so, I want to talk to you about, euthanasia. He says, yes, have you seen this one? Where he says, yeah, what about it? He says, why is it always the youth in Asia? He says, no, it's about euthanasia. He says, but I know, but why is it not other people? Why is the target only youth in Asia? This guy is freaking hilarious what he does.
My favorite part of that show is when he goes to a city council meeting in Kingman, Arizona, which is a very hardcore like biker town, and he proposes the construction of the largest mosque in North America, and they're like screaming, they're like, we don't want any fucking terrorists here. That to me was like the fact that he was able to keep a straight face during that character performance.
Gotta love it. Okay, so for you, with the places that you visit, we got a lot of stuff that's going on right now that, it's kind of timely with Luigi Mangione, the protest for that, and, Tesla, Elon, and, United. There's a bunch of stuff that's going on. But let's start off with something very important that you and I were talking about. I think it's probably the most important issue that most people are not aware of.
What?
So, the Bridge is already really good at the wallet and all the everyday carry stuff, but I was surprised with how much they were able to do with their first foray into tech. So this, a 10,000 milliamp hour battery that's already this small, is pretty clutch.
And that is your favorite movie. Your favorite movie of all time is?
The Dark Knight, the second film in the Christopher Nolan Batman series.
And why is it the second one?
Well, everyone expects me to say that I'm into like really cutting edge documentaries like by Adam Curtis and Errol Morris and stuff like that, but I actually just love Batman. And I loved it so much when it first came out in 2012. I saw it 5 times in a row in Ocean City, New Jersey, every matinee up for a week straight, just trying to really digest all of the different subplots and narratives.
Which character, though?
I mean, there's the Joker, there's Commissioner Gordon, there's Christian Bale's Batman character was amazing. There's just so much. Batman Begins was a great, segue to The Dark Knight. Dark Knight Rises didn't really do it for me. A little bit too political.
Too political for you.
Well, Dark Knight Rises was like a metaphor for the Occupy Wall Street movement going too far. When they start, when Bane is supposed to be like the commander of Antifa, and they roll up in the New York Stock Exchange and start shooting people and stuff.
Too divisive.
Well, it was literally like, I feel like it was subsidized in some way by Wall Street.
Yeah. But character-wise, like, who do you relate? Because for me, for the longest time, my podcast set had 3 characters behind me: Batman, Joker, and the Incredible Hulk. And it's like the 3 personalities I relate to, right? But which one was it where you said, I kind of feel like I'm this guy in this movie?
Well, this is a hard one to answer, because if I say I'm like the Joker, that makes it sound like I'm a dark, sort of sinister...
But I have a Joker side to me as well.
You have a lot of vengeance in you, where you get Joker brain?
It's not, though. It's when you see somebody that, when you're sick and tired of being taken advantage of, and you can't let go of you choose a wrong enemy, can really destroy your life. And I think that's what happened to him. He couldn't let it go.
Yeah.
But he's a hero to a lot of people as well. A lot of people followed his fire and the pain that he had.
Yeah, I would say that I'm somewhere in between Batman and the Joker.
Okay.
But I think that the Joker is definitely a relatable character, more so in The Dark Knight than he was in the Joaquin Phoenix movie a couple years ago, which I know you said you were not a fan of.
Dude, I walked that 43 minutes into the movie. I go and I look at my wife. We have 20 people at the movie. Rob, were you with us or no when we watched the Joker?
No.
So we're in the movie theater. I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Why? So this is divisive, man. You're pinning America against America. We don't need more of this. And it's interesting because that movie, what ends up happening at the end of that movie? He ends up killing, is it Robert De Niro, who is that, like the Johnny Carson character of the movie?
Yeah, he says, how about another joke, Murray? And he kills him. And that was after he killed a couple bankers on the subway.
After he kills a couple bankers on the subway. And then that leads to one of the stories, the Luigi Mangione story.
Yeah, wow.
Where here's a guy, you got Luigi Mangione, you look at his background, stud of a guy, student, good grades, everything's looking good, minus the last 90 minutes he disappears, 90 days he disappears, where you can't really see what's happening then. The people he followed on X, I was one of them. He followed some 74 people who were libertarian type of guys that he followed. So it's not like he followed only right or only left or only middle. He was open-minded is what he seemed like. And then all of a sudden the rage gets there to want to take out the United Healthcare CEO. How much, when you hear that story, you went to the rally, by the way, right? What did you hear people saying? Like, what were you noticing that caused people to go rally for this guy?
Well, I mean, if the manifesto was legitimate, the one that was leaked, that was published by an independent reporter named Ken Klippenstein, if that's real, it seemed like Luigi Mangione had a lot of grievances against the health insurance claim denial system, particularly how United Healthcare had implemented AI to automatically deny people's healthcare claims. So people needed treatment, they were paying customers, and there was a machine that had one of the highest insurance claim denial rates of any other major health insurance
33%.
Something that was ridiculously high.
Can you pull up that number, Rob?
People were trying to appeal the robot's decision, and it was almost impossible. You were stuck, with someone on the phone for days, and a lot of times during that window where people were waiting to get care, they would pass away. So I'm not sure if he had someone in his family who was affected by the healthcare policies, but I feel like a lot of people in my generation are kind of fed up with things not changing. The cost of living being ridiculously high, the wages being really low, and they felt like Luigi Mangione was something like a martyr who spoke for the rage of the collective public who feels like nothing is changing.
So what do you think is the level to go to? Because some people, what's the one girl lately that's been talking about Luigi Mangione in a very complimentary way? Tracy, is it Lauren?
Taylor Lorenz.
Taylor Lorenz. Have you heard about Taylor Lorenz?
Yeah, she helped us whenever we lost all gas during a contractual dispute. She leaked all the information, which kind of like segued millions of fans to Channel 5. So shout out to her for that. I'm not sure what she was saying about Luigi, but I think that basically probably what I'm assuming she was saying is that many people felt like he represented the call for direct action. And there's a generational shift to the idea that awareness culture and raising awareness doesn't actually create change. So there's a lot of people.
Say that one more time.
There's kind of an idea that has persisted over the course of the past couple years, especially with the progressive left in the U.S., that raising awareness doesn't do much to actually create change. And so for someone to break out of the mold of like making people aware and actually take things a step further made people feel some type of revolutionary spirit.
Wow. So even if it means killing the CEO.
Well, because their logic is, how many people have died as a result of their healthcare claims being denied.
Yeah.
Health insurance claims.
Yeah. So to you, to somebody that is going through this and you're touching and you're talking to people and you're hearing the arguments at the protest, walking away, what argument got for you to say, it's a little too much? And what argument was like, you know what? These guys may have a point in this area. Which one was it?
Well, I mean, the reality is that regardless of like how I felt about the opinions, killing a bunch of CEOs is not going to change any of that infrastructure in the health insurance industry. You know what I mean? That's not like
for sure.
That's
I agree
going to
with
lead
that.
to.
See, that was my concern with the movie Joker. So here's a chance for me to be a hero.
But the fact that it spurred conversations, I thought was interesting. I mean, it was fascinating to see such the instant valorization of Luigi that happened overnight. Everyone's like, oh my God, this guy's so hot. We love him. He's our hero. It was interesting because that was very much poisoned by the social media algorithms of the time. Where like Luigi Mangione becomes a hero to so many. And in general, I think that it did spark some good conversations. But I think you can acknowledge that while still saying it's not good to shoot people in the back of the head in the street.
Rob, what's that clip, by the way, you just had? Because I think that's the one where she breaks down her argument, right? Can you play this clip? I think she does a good job explaining why she's for.
You can't put a price on peace of mind, especially when it comes to building your new home. That's why Lancia Homes locks in your price the moment you sign a purchase agreement with us. So even if material costs go up during your build, you won't pay a penny more. That's the Lancia Homes price lock promise.
Luigi Mangione, and I don't think she's alone. I think there's a lot of people that are probably on her side as well. Go ahead, Rob.
To see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, we don't stand murderers of all sorts, and we give them Netflix shows. There's a huge disconnect between the narratives and angles that sort of mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels. And you see that in moments like this. And I can tell you, I saw the biggest audience growth that I've ever seen, because people were like, oh, some journalist is actually speaking to the anger that we feel.
The women who got her outside court in New York.
So you're gonna see women especially that feel like, oh my God, right? Like here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems like this morally good man, which is hard to find.
Yeah, I just realized women will literally date an assassin before they swipe right on me. That's where we are. I'm sure you wouldn't like to be comfortable.
By the way, he's doing a pretty good job. I've been seeing his stuff the last 2 weeks, and I think he's actually doing a pretty good. I don't know who he is, but
yeah, I think she broke it down quite well in terms of like the romantic appeal as well.
I mean, you hear the stories. Who are some of the people that ladies would be lined up in prison just to kind of see him? Was Charles Manson? Who else was it? Like people would be lined up
Ted
outside.
Bundy. He had the Menendez brothers who killed their parents in California. One of them got married while they were behind bars.
Wow. I mean, every serial killer has typically had like dozens, if not hundreds of women writing them in prison.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think people are just fascinated by the allure of it when people's names are in the headlines, like just someone's sort of profile being that large. Just fame attracts a certain kind of person regardless.
And you know, she said something here, which is very interesting. And I was having this conversation with us, Rob. One day you and I, 7 of us were at Casa D'Angelo. And you even said this once when you were being interviewed with Vice, I believe. And I don't know what the guy asked you. He said something about, did you ever catch yourself, you know, creating content that the audience was reacting to or something like that? I don't know what the context of it was, but you were kind of explaining that where she says, I've never had this many followers. That's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
Because who is following you? Who is agreeing with you? You know, who is saying, man, I like what you have to say. And all of a sudden, you're in the room with them, you're like, whoa, I don't relate to you guys. Where did you guys show up?
Yeah. And that's the thing about social media nowadays in particular is like people kind of become, it's a very fine line to walk when you exist online, is doing things that you believe in and doing things that you know your fans will appreciate and kind of want you to do. Because once you pigeonhole yourself as a certain type of person, you know your audience quite well. You know that if you say a certain thing to the audience you've built up that they disagree with, that a lot of them are going to walk away. You know, for example, like there's a lot of people, both conservative and progressive, who might have opinions about different things like abortion, homelessness, gay marriage, Israel-Palestine, that they know that if they speak their opinion on it, they might lose a significant percentage of their audience. And so I think that keeps a lot of people going in line with what they see as like the majority consensus narrative, as opposed to finding a middle ground and having conversations. Because at the end of the day, everyone's trying to survive too. Like imagine if for someone like Alex Jones went on, TV and said, I support, a Palestinian two-state solution. A lot of people would be upset with that.
But Alex has also not been the most agreeable guy in the Republican side. That's every president has had a little on the conservative side. Nobody outside of Trump has been very close to him. Most of the Republican presidents can't stand Alex Jones.
Really?
You think George Bush likes Alex Jones?
What is George Bush doing nowadays?
No, but seriously, do you think George Bush likes Alex Jones?
I mean, I don't know if George Bush knows who Alex Jones is.
No, I guarantee he knows who Alex Jones is. I guarantee he knows who Alex Jones is. Wasn't Alex like the first one that came out saying 9/11 is going to be happening and they're going to blame this and they're going to blame that? Isn't that... Didn't he do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, he was warning of an impending terrorist attack. I think specifically on the World Trade Center, like years and years before it happened.
Right.
Bear in mind that was after there were bombs detonated in the parking garage of the World Trade Center. I think it was in 1997 or 99.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. It wasn't like he was conjuring up that image from scratch, but it makes sense as to why George W. Bush doesn't like Alex Jones.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is when you use the example of Alex Jones, I don't know if Republicans side with Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Outside of Trump.
I guess what I'm kind of trying to say is when you become a social media influencer on a different political side, on one political side of the aisle, it can disrupt your business and income if you decide to deviate from the norm of the consensus.
So for you, when I watch you, you say, I have leftists, but I don't want to be tied to a political side, and I don't want to do this and that, but I'm kind of this. As you're going through all of these places and, you're living your life and you're developing your own opinion, you're only 28, you're growing.
27.
27.
Yeah.
97, I'm doing the math, so you're going to be 28.
Yeah.
What month are you born by?
I'm actually was born on April 23rd, so it's coming right up.
Well, that's right. We made a note of that. Your birthday's coming up. That's
Thanks.
right. But happy early birthday to you, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, as you're going through this, would you consider yourself more of an anti-establishment person?
Anti-establishment, like socially progressive. You know, I think people should be able to do whatever they want to do within reason. But yeah, socially progressive, anti-establishment. Definitely don't find any identity in either of the major political parties today.
Yeah, and to you, and Alex Jones would be a guy that is. Would you put him as an establishment guy or anti-establishment?
Anti-establishment,
okay, great.
for
That's
sure,
what I'm saying.
100%.
Yeah, so I think you and Alex are. Obviously, he makes claims, he says things. You don't do that. You just go get the content and say, hey, what do you think, audience? Make up your mind.
Yeah.
This is up to you, right? You don't get up there and say, let me tell you what I think is going to be going on. That's not your brand.
Definitely.
You're more going out there doing the journalism. But to me, it's almost like whenever somebody isn't invited to the White House too often by president, they don't trust the guy fully.
Yeah.
The only guy that's given this guy the opportunity to come in is Trump. All the other guys weren't comfortable with him. As a young guy yourself, how do you feel about Trump?
I mean, in what sense?
I mean, okay, so you're in the streets, you're talking to everybody. Did you think he was going to win, or did you think, oh, there's no way this guy's going to win?
I definitely did not think that he was going to win.
Oh, really? Even till the last minute?
I mean, I think I'm kind of in a bubble to a certain extent.
Okay.
I'm mostly in like progressive major cities, so I didn't even realize that he was going to win. But then after the assassination attempt, I knew he would win. You know, specifically when he pumped his fist and said fight, I was like, it's done. There's nothing the Democrats could possibly do to take the trophy away from this guy. But yeah, I would say in general, like, I'm not really like a Trump guy. Mostly, I don't like the way that that political movement makes people treat each other. You know, just on like a day-to-day human level, like interpersonal interactions get really dark between the Trump crowd and their opposition.
Who do you think created that?
I just think that the showmanship of politics that's happened in the last, probably 6 to 8 years. It's kind of like 2 football teams, and it gets pretty gnarly out there. I don't think people were fighting in the streets during the Obama and Romney election. I don't think there was like a Romney Proud Boys, You
don't think there was Romney Proud Boys? Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think, for a guy that's anti-establishment, do you view Romney as an establishment guy or an anti-establishment guy?
I mean, I know he's part of the Utah establishment because he is a Mormon.
Right.
Which is no disrespect to Mormons. They're actually really nice.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think so, yeah, for sure. He's like an RNC guy.
Did you do something with Mormons or no?
No, I want to.
Oh,
but
you
it's kind of
got
hard
to.
because if you portray them negatively, it's kind of like Scientologists. Like,
Yeah.
the Mormons have a lot of money to sue you.
Yeah, but Scientology will come after you in different ways.
I'm more scared of Scientology than any other subgroup in the world.
Really?
Yeah, you know about fair gaming, right? Their policy where they can like stalk you and harass you for years.
Of
and use,
course, I'm
like,
very familiar with
use
that.
CIA technology to make you
Oh.
think you're having a schizophrenic break.
For sure. They are incredible at what they do. I mean...
What is that?
Guy's wife's been missing for how long?
Injure them?
David Miscavige's wife.
Destroy them by any means, including trickery.
Shirley?
Is it Shelley or Shirley?
Shelley.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was like an LAPD checkup where they like reported that nothing was wrong. I was like, what do you mean? Did you talk to her? They're like, we're not going to say, but like everything's fine. There's a guy in Los Angeles right now. He's one of those like Second Amendment, First Amendment audit, like cop watcher guys.
Yeah.
His name is, I think it's like Stop Scientology LA. He stands outside of the Church of Scientology on Hollywood Boulevard every single day, live streaming for hours, physically like blocking the entryway, getting people to not go inside and get a free auditing session. So he's single-handedly shut down the recruitment operation in Hollywood. One man.
Yeah, she's apparently been missing since 2007. Okay? Since 2007, she's been missing.
Well, I think we know what happened.
What's that?
She's dead.
You think so?
Yeah, dude.
Leah Remini. Did you ever see the Leah, am I saying her last name correctly?
Shelley Miscavige.
No. Leah
Remini.
Remini. Do you know who she is?
Is she
Leah
dead?
Remini? No.
Oh, she was in Going Clear, right? That big
That's
Netflix
right,
documentary
yeah.
about Scientology.
Yeah. And she went on and she says, well, one time I went and I said, so how's Shelley doing? And everybody looked at me saying, hey, you don't ask a question like that. And it's like, well, I'm just asking a basic question. She's a friend of mine. You don't ask a question like that. And then she's like, that's when I realized something's weird over here.
Yeah.
So you think she's been dead in 2007. So let me ask you, if that's the case, what is the protocol? What are they supposed to do? Is the government supposed to investigate? Or are we one day going to sit there and say, Shelley Miscavige is 173 years old, been missing since 2007? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, like, is she going to get a funeral?
When does it get to a point that the government says, I want to investigate what really happened to her? Has there ever been one, Rob? Has the U.S. government or the PD ever investigated to find out what happened to her? You just went after Scientology.
Another crazy fact, too, is that David Miscavige, their leader, has never done an interview. He's only ever been documented. Wait, with who?
One interview he did. You've never seen this?
No, I got to find it.
You have to watch this. You're saying you're in the space, so maybe.
I've only seen him portrayed by Scientology media.
He's done one interview his entire life. Yeah, I'm right, with Ted Koppel. By the way, if you've never seen this.
Okay, thank you for the fact check on this. 1992.
To watch this.
So
Yes.
it's been over 30 years since
It
his
has
last
been.
appearance.
And let me tell you, the way he interviews, the way this guy interviews with Ted Koppel is unbelievable. And if you watch him, you know whose mannerisms you'll pick up? Okay, I want you to watch this and tell me what actor's mannerism do you pick up. Go ahead, Rob. Just
Tom
press
Cruise.
play.
That could have been a big E.
Watch this.
I feel perfectly comfortable with my life. I like my job. I'm happy with my family. I love my wife. I'm healthy. I'm perfectly content. That's why I'm asking you, what is it you can do for me?
Well, number one, I would never try to talk you into that Scientology is for you. You see, that's the funny thing about this, is if I'm now going to give a
Tom
sales
Cruise?
pitch to you on Scientology, believe me,
Right?
Scientology is valuable enough that it doesn't require any sales pitch. But let's look at it this way, then, what Scientology does. You look out across the world
This is
today.
the only interview he's ever
you
done
can say
since
that if you
92.
take a person who's
We
healthy,
can pause it. Whatever you do, watch this when you're out of here.
Yeah, I can't
You
wait.
will be blown away by this guy's interview. We've tried to have him on many, many times. I'd love to talk to the guy.
Have you gotten to the stage of like him considering doing an interview?
No, but we spoke to his camp because we've had a few people on. One guy who left the organization, and we had a couple other guys. Mike Rinder, who, what is his relation to David Miscavige? He was one of the highest ranking guys there, right? The
Yep.
senior executive of the church international, and he ran the Sea organization, which is like the place to be.
Yes, that for those unfamiliar, that's the top organization in the hierarchy of Scientology. And if you buy your way into the Sea Org, there's an annual cruise that you get to go on, and that is sort of the top tier. I don't know how much you have to spend to get into Sea Org, but once you're there, you're in. Whatever,
Yeah.
and I don't know what the benefits are of that.
If you have any interest, I have some friends I can introduce you.
I have an extreme interest in Scientology, but I also have an interest in being alive.
So you don't want to be a member?
No, I mean, holy shit! Can you imagine having those guys against you?
Yeah, but imagine if you have them with you.
That's even
that's
more.
that's
I'm
the
going to lose
sales
all
pitch.
credibility.
It would be like Andrew Callahan. Imagine if you were part of an organization and we had your back. You would never have to worry about anything. Does that sound appealing to you?
It does, but what sounds more appealing is staying away from them or being a liaison between Scientology and the public. Like David Miscavige is like, you know what? Shelly's actually at my apartment here in Florida.
Come meet her.
Come meet
Let's
her,
have
do an
dinner.
interview. Let's make a Channel 5 video. I would do it.
Oh, I would love to see it. I'd love to see it. I'd love for you to go and just talk to. You know what else would be interesting for you to do? If many, many years ago, when I was an atheist, I would go to churches in LA and I would just go want to talk to everybody about whatever they believe in. I'd go to LDS and I would say, so tell me about this Gordon B. Hinckley. Tell me about this, Joseph Smith. Tell me what happened with Vermont when he found these plates and he moved to these states, and every time you guys moved, you got kicked out until you got to Utah. What happened there? Tell me about this. I would go to Scientology church, and I would say, what do you believe in? Who's God?
a
Who's
dumb
this?
amount of armor. That was
Whoever you believe in.
unfortunate.
Who do you believe in? And it was always such an incredible method of communicating with you, which is so impressive. If you notice one thing about Scientologists, you know what they definitely can do better than mostly other religions? They're incredible communicators. John Travolta, Scientology.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, Scientology. Look at the way David Miscavige speaks. He speaks better than most preachers speak. The way they teach their guys. I had an office one time where 70 agents in the office were all Scientologists. I loved working with them.
Yeah. They're kind of like Toastmasters, intergalactic.
On
Toastmasters.
steroids and growth hormone, and they hang out with Gary Brecka all the time type of health.
Yeah.
Like they're at that level.
But one thing I know they do is whenever they do the auditing sessions
Yeah.
and they ask you to recall a traumatic memory or something that's sitting in your subconscious, I know that they record that session so they can hold whatever you're saying as blackmail to leverage against you in the future. I do believe that Scientology is sort of a massive for-profit blackmail operation that it's deeply entrenched in Hollywood and the police departments of Southern California.
Interesting.
Because I mean, what is the purpose? Because they're not atheists; they believe in an ascendant spiritual plane where the Thetan, which is your soul, will live there and occupy its own planet after you pass away for eternity. Which sounds fantastic in theory. So I hope it's true. So if you're a Scientologist watching this, I hope you're right. But imagine you die, you get to heaven, and you're a Christian, and God is like, Scientology was right. You're going to hell.
So what are you? What do you believe in?
Me, man, that's the thing, man. Like you said, I'm 27. I'm still trying to figure things out. Like my opinions sort of change as I'm learning more stuff about life. I would like to think that there's an afterlife. When I was a kid, my grandma told me that, there was, and that all my great-grandparents were there watching the Phillies games, and the Phillies always win in heaven. That sounded nice. I was like, oh, it sounds great because they're losing right now. But as I'm getting older, man, I don't know. Sometimes I watch a bug die or a dog. We just had to put down a puppy. Never mind. Anyways, I think to myself, like, man, what makes me different from all these animals and wildlife that's passing away? Is there something special about the human spirit that allows us to occupy the kingdom of heaven? Are we more than animal?
Well, listen, I don't know if you ever watched Charlie, All Dogs Go to Heaven. You ever saw the movie All Dogs Go to Heaven?
Mm-mm.
I believe all dogs go to heaven.
So you think, are they...
I don't know about cats, but I think all dogs go to heaven.
But do they get their own specific heaven, or are they with us?
I think they're hanging out with us. I can't imagine going to heaven not seeing dogs.
So dogs are the only species in heaven, or all other domesticated pet breeds?
I don't know. That's a pay grade that I haven't reached that level 32 or 33 to know if they're going to be there or not. I'm kind of going based on faith. I'm hoping they're going to be there because we love animals. But if my dad's version of faith, to him, he is hoping animals don't go to heaven. Because my dad can't stand dogs.
Because they poo everywhere?
Because my dad is a clean freak, and God forbid an animal touches him. He loses his mind. Till today, his mother, my grandmother, had 12 cats, 2 dogs, 2 parrots, 12 birds, 2 snakes. All her kids love dogs and animals, except for my dad. She had 4 kids. They all love animals. My dad can't stand it. So my dad's depiction of heaven, it's just human beings. So mine, I'm hoping there's some animals, but we'll see. So you don't have a faith, you don't have something you believe in? Right
No,
now.
I'd like to, though. I'd like to have some sort of ecstatic religious experience.
Well, you're 27. You're going through it. When the way, the journey you're going on is so awesome that I'm really curious to know who you are 3 years from now, 6 years from now. Sincerely, I want to know where you're going to be 10 years from now. There's certain people you watch who are coming up, and you're like, I think this guy's going to change a lot of times. And I can't wait to meet the next guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, look, 10 years ago, Rogan was a Sanders guy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, wait, what? He was one of the reasons why Trump got elected. They hug each other at UFC as if they're best friends. What? This is not the same guy. When I was on Rogan's podcast, he's like, I'll never have,
Yeah.
He was thinking about it, but at one point he told Lex, I'll never have him on. They called me all this other stuff. What happened to him? What evolution did he go through? I think last week Rogan just said, I'm no longer drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago.
I stopped about 39 days ago.
Really?
Yeah.
How is it so far for you?
It's just fantastic, man. Like, I used to spend so much time socializing. It became like a second job. You know what I mean? I'm like, I get off work. It felt like partying was a job. And I just have much more time on my hands, much more emotional regulation. That's why I'm putting out 3 videos a week now as opposed to 1. Because I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, been running, get to work, edit, put something out.
And you edit your own stuff, I do.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, but what'd you say?
I hear you edit your own videos.
I edit my own videos mostly, but I have a new team of editors. Shout out to Charlie, Nate, Gabe, and Ethan. Those are my first 4 editors, my first 4 Channel 5 employees of history. Charlie Brady. He edited the video about West Virginia Greyhound racing.
Oh, very cool.
I wanted to ask you, though, what religion was your father? Or is your father?
Mom and dad both Christians.
And they're from?
Iran.
Iran?
Yeah.
Is that the dominant religion there?
No, but remember, my dad's Assyrian and my mother's Armenian. So I speak Armenian, I speak Aramaic, but I lived in Iran for almost 11 years, went to Germany, then we came here.
Were Christians expelled under the Shah?
Not under the Shah. The Shah was like open.
Oh, I mean Khomeini, sorry.
Yeah, under Khomeini, you do not want to, you're walking on eggshells under Khomeini when you were a Christian at my time. It was uncomfortable. It was, you couldn't go out and be too public about it. See, there's a couple things when you know, you talk about Iran and you talk about America. And for me, when you grow up as a kid, you're like, whoa, why can't I be a Christian? Why can't I be public about it? Why is this so judgmental and unsafe, and you got to be careful and all this other stuff? And then you come to America, you're like, yeah, you're a Muslim? Great. Go to Detroit, take over Detroit.
Yeah.
Take over Dearborn. Do what you want to do. You want to be Scientologist? Go to LA. Build it up. Go to Tampa. No problem. You want to be a Mormon? Go to Utah. Do your thing. You want to be Jehovah? So it's like, you know, it allows you to do it. This country being a great one. But going back to it, establishment as the anti-establishment, we're talking about Trump. And your industry's talking to, you would be a what? Are you a Gen Z with the...
I think I'm on like the very late Gen Z.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like the last, I'm like the oldest Gen Z person.
You're old.
I'm like, right, you know how there's like the Aries Taurus cusp, which is today?
Yeah.
I'm like that for Gen Z. I'm not a millennial, but I'm definitely not Gen Alpha. Like I when I was a kid, I was like playing with sticks and kicking rocks around and
Still,
stuff. I wasn't,
you experienced that?
Yeah, I had the internet came around when I was like 7 or 8, at least home computers. So I was out there, you know what I mean, just doing my thing.
The good old days.
The good old days.
Yeah,
you know, I wasn't watching people on live stream typing in like W chat or L chat. Like I was really experiencing.
Well, how old is Mr. Beast? Is he older than you, or you guys?
Yeah,
about
Mr.
the
Beast
same
is I would estimate 31.
How old is Logan? Logan Paul's what, like 28? Oh shit, is he really 26? He's not 26.
Oh, Mr. Beast was born in 1998.
Wow.
I gotta get my hustle on.
Holy shit, he's 26? Dude, I thought he was 30. How old is Logan Paul? Can you pull that up? Rob, how old is he? He's got to be like 28-ish.
Oh, I've got Logan
So
Paul
he's
beat by
30.
3 years. All right,
Got
we're
it.
good.
And Jake is what, 29? Is Jake like a year younger?
28.
So 20 years until retirement. At this rate, it's probably going to be more like 40. Okay, no, way too long. Let's see how much you're spending. Download an app called Rocket Money.
Oh, wow. I've got 3 DoorDash accounts. Man, I totally forgot to cancel those.
28. So this is like the 26, 27, 28, 30. I think the way you're going, if you continue the way you're going, you'll be a 20 million plus sub channel.
I hope so.
No, I think you will be. I think your only reason you won't is because you're going to be your own enemy and get in your own way. If you kind of buckle down and stay disciplined, I think you're going to get there. And I think
definitely
you'll be a very, very influential voice in citizen journalism in America.
Thanks.
And help a lot of us that maybe we don't have the time to go there. We'll be like, okay, where's he at now? Oh shit, I didn't know that. That's what it looks like. We're going back to it. You see, you're not a Trump guy, but you said. When I asked you about Romney, somehow we went to Scientology.
Yeah.
Right? Which was a very weird left turn we took.
Well, I think it was the Mormon Scientology
Establishment,
overlap,
Mormon. Yes,
however that
yes.
happened.
Yeah. But would you put him more, like, do you think Romney is more with President Bush, or do you think Romney is more friends with Trump?
I mean, as far as Trump, he's not part of the RNC establishment, but there's a new establishment forming around Trump. You know what I mean? Like, I think that he ran on the platform of being against the DNC establishment, who obviously are entrenched in, like, the mainstream press, late-night television. Most cable news networks, except for Fox, are kind of obedient to the Democratic Party. You saw that when they disenfranchised Bernie Sanders during the primaries in
That's right.
2016.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that, yeah,
Sounds
he
so
was for a
good.
long time. But I think there's a new establishment forming.
But hang on, forming. But prior to being established, they were anti-establishment before they got established.
Well, there's multiple establishments is kind of the thing.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
But establishment is what? Those who are the majority, they have the control, they're established, and this is our way. You have to come ask our permission to run, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like, hey, I'm Obama, I'm Clinton, I'm this. You're going to come through us before you run, right?
Yeah, Trump is totally an outsider, anti-establishment in 2016.
So check this out. This is kind of where I'm going with this because I'm trying to see, positioning. So Obama, would you put Obama as establishment or anti-establishment?
Establishment.
For sure.
Yeah.
Would you put Bush as establishment or anti? How about Clinton?
Yeah.
How about Senior?
Yeah.
How about Reagan?
Yeah.
How about Carter?
Every president ever before Trump was a part of a major political establishment.
How about Kennedy?
Kennedy, I believe, was assassinated by the government because he went against the agenda. What that agenda is, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to do some research.
So I would say the last 2 anti-establishment presidents we've had are Kennedy and Trump.
I think that the Democratic Party wanted Trump to win in 2016 because I think they believed that he had no chance. And I think that the Democrats actually propped him up. It's called the Pied Piper strategy. I think they did that in 2016, Hillary in particular in the DNC camp, because they thought this guy's ridiculous. After he went down the elevator, they were like, no way is the birth certificate guy going to possibly win. So I think that they purposely propped up an anti-establishment candidate in 2016, anti-political establishment, not, financial or corporate establishment, with the idea that he'd be so easy to beat. But he was so good at speaking and having a genuine connection with the people in the way that he talked casually, off script, pulling no punches, that people resonated with Trump a lot.
Why do you think, even from the younger males, Gen Zs, why do you think there's such a big growth and attraction to Trump today like never before? Because it's more your generation, your age guys, 18 to 27-ish, 28-ish. They're seeing themselves like, man, I kind of want a guy like Trump instead of what's going on. Why do you think that number is increasing the most, that demo?
I think that has a lot to do with the sort of like...
Can you pull that up, Rob? Because we've talked about this before
a lot of the culture war identity stuff being pushed a lot by the Democratic establishment is backfiring in a way that makes a lot of young white dudes feel like, why are people hating on me all the time? Feeling kind of disenfranchised. They're being told their voice isn't important and that it's not about what your ideas are, but it's about what you look like and what your background is. And if you're from a high place of privilege, then you shouldn't be able to have as much of a role in the conversation as someone else who's been given less in life. And so I think that especially in academia, where you're seeing a lot of people kind of feel disillusioned with the discourse there because it's so generally one-sided on college campuses. I think there's a lot of young people who are also seeing Trump go on podcasts like Theo Vaughn, Nelk Boys, this one, a lot of podcasts where you're having a regular conversation that you wouldn't be able to have with most establishment candidates. And they think, all right, you know what? I might not love everything about this guy, but I'll tell you that he's able to have a conversation here or with someone who's just willing to talk. And they feel like, you know, if he could be my friend too.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said I'm kind of in a progressive bubble. That's what you said a few minutes ago, right?
To a certain extent, yeah.
Okay, so in the progressive bubble that you're in, what is that progressive bubble believe in?
Well, in the progressive bubble that I'm in,
values and principles,
which would be like more leftist oriented late Gen Zers, there's not much Kamala Harris or Biden support. You know, I think that's the big thing that conservatives missed, is that nobody in my age demographic was excited about the Harris campaign except for a select few. Most people I know didn't even vote for the Democrats, who would be considered very anti-conservative because they felt like we didn't have a candidate that would speak for the interest of the more progressive youth. And I think that we still don't. You know, that's why I kind of look for 2028 as the great equalizer year, because after the Harris loss, I think the DNC establishment is going to be in obscurity. And I think that with Trump taking over the conservative side, the traditional Bush RNC is also not as important. So I think we're going to have fresh primaries in 4 years with, you know, great voices from both sides of the aisle. And I think it's going to be one of the most fair and free elections ever.
Okay, so what I want to hear is values. Progressive bubble. Yeah. What are the values you believe in? Your top 3 values. Socially progressive.
Probably socially progressive. I believe in like the complete legalization of gay marriage.
Okay.
Pretty pro-choice. I think that the richest people in the country should be taxed a little bit more, and I think that the working class people should be paid a little bit more as well. I think that there's a wide gap that you're seeing, especially when you have the richest cities in the country have the most inequality. You have a state or a city like Los Angeles, which has the highest corporate tax rate and the highest homelessness rate in the country. So the fact that these two things are existing in tandem shows that the money from taxation is not being spent effectively. People are not able to afford to live a normal life. I think that even 30 or 40 years ago, it was normal to get a college degree, go straight into the workforce in the white-collar sector and be able to buy a home for yourself and start a family at 30. Most people that I know are so overwhelmed by student debt at this point in their life, and that they can't even think about anything except for clearing that debt by any means necessary. People are so overworked they have no time to pursue their creative interests. There's no politician they feel like speaks for the working people of the country. And I think that I'm more in line with that way of thinking.
Apply for a new place from any place with just a single click. Apartments.com, the place to find a place.
Welcome back to Papa John's. For a very limited time, we've got free pizza. Yo, tell them what it is.
Buy any large pizza at regular menu price, get one large one-topping pizza for free.
No, like free. Yeah, we did do.
You know, but I'm not like I don't sit around hating on Trump or getting upset about that, because I think all this stuff is just a symptom of the dysfunction in our country that at some point will work itself out if we can come together.
Would you say you're a pretty reasonable guy?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I think so as well. You give me the vibes, too. Do you the conversation of allowing men to compete in women's sports, how do you, as a young Gen Z progressive, view that argument?
I mean, I just wonder how much of like an issue that really is. It seems like the kind of thing that is really like small, that doesn't affect that many people's lives. It's being blown out of proportion by different news organizations to distract people from the real growing income inequality that's happening. I mean, evidently, if there's like a buff person who identifies as non-binary who is competing in women's sports, but they were born as biologically male, obviously that's an unfair situation.
Okay, so you say that.
Yeah, I mean.
By the way, so that's logic to us as well, right? But when, again, to me, this is where a couple things are happening. That's one thing that I'm curious to know your thoughts. So when I look at the Democratic Party, and their approval rating was higher what do you want to call it? Pre-Obama, it was higher, and even let's just say during Obama as well was higher. To where it's at today, I don't know if you've seen the rating or not, where they're at. Have you seen that lately, what they've been reporting?
I didn't even know they did approval ratings for people who aren't in power.
Oh, you got to see this. It's done by CNN, which is the one I trust the most, because CNN polls.
Yeah, they do not. They want that number to be as high as possible.
That's exactly. So if Fox did it, I would be like, yeah.
Yeah, Fox is like, turns out everyone.
That's right. Rob, do you have the video where the guy Hinton, what's his name? Hinton.
Harry. Yes.
Harry that does it. He does a very good job. We have that clip. But when you watch this, you ask yourself, okay, why is that idea not as popular as it used to be? What happened all of a sudden, right? The numbers are staggering on how much it's dropped.
What's it at now? Like what? 30, 35%?
No.
Less than that.
You got to see this. Rob, did you find it or?
I'm looking for the video now. I did find the article that you.
No, it's a video. What's the guy's name?
Harry Enton.
Enton?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go on X, just type in Enton Democratic rating. There you go. Is that the most recent one?
This is from February.
There is another one that he did that's more recent.
November, March.
Yeah, but
March 12th.
Okay, go with that one. Watch this.
No, that's old. Hold on, sorry.
While he finds it, I just want to say, I think that the trans women in sports thing is like a classic divide and conquer, overblown culture war distraction, divide the public thing. Because like realistically, they know that what they're doing now by creating that issue is that it's taking precedence over things that are far more important that affect millions and millions of people. And they know that there's going to be a push on the progressive side to vehemently defend that, because that's what they do. And there's going to be a conservative push to make that the main issue. And so it's creating this like matrix. It's almost like filibustering public conversation.
But also, let's say you're right, and let's give credence to 20% of the argument of that being a part of it. Let's put that there. That I think there's a part of it that the opposing side's like, hey, show this clip. Look at what this happened. So I get that.
Yeah.
I get a little bit of that, that's happening where they're showing. Okay, like, hey, look at what's going on with, the economy, stock market drop. New job reports came up. It's higher than expected. No, don't show this report, CNN. Show what's going on with the stock market here and tariffs, right? I get that part. However, maybe some of it's also the bad policies cost a lot of people to leave the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
More than ever before. Rob, if you want to play this clip, watch this one here. This is how long ago, Rob?
This is March 17th? March 17th.
There's an updated one, but let's just watch it.
Close
enough, yeah.
I have to say, Democrats, call your office. We're March Madness times. Terrible, 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 to quote the great Charles Barkley. View Democratic Party favorably. CNN SRS, look at this, 29%. NBC News, you want to go lower than that? How about 27%? Both are record lows. The lowest going back to 1992 in CNN polling. The lowest going back on record to 1990 in NBC News polling. The majority of Americans hold
probably because you can't match the guy's energy on the right. The guy's going full like sports announcer mode.
All I can say is I'm a big fan of the oldies, so I'm going to quote
talking like Trump.
How low can you go?
Nice. Well done.
Nice.
What about congressional Democrats?
Nice.
Yeah, what about congressional Democrats?
Why does he look so uncomfortable?
These numbers are low. How about this one? Holy Toledo. Shit. Voters' views of the Democrats in Congress among all voters disapprove, 68%. And look at the approved number, just 21%, even lower than the Democratic
I want to hire this guy. He's like a Bernie Sanders Trump crossover. He looks like the dad from Modern Family.
University polling. You think these numbers are bad?
Let's go to watch this one. Watch this. Dems on Dems. Go.
Yeah.
Keep playing.
Democratic voters feel. Get this. The plurality of Democratic voters disapprove of Democrats in Congress at 49%, and just 40% approve.
So data is data, right? Data is data. So when you look at that, this is not good. So then the question becomes, how did you guys get here? What ideas were bad ideas? You said something very interesting, and where you're You're for gay marriage. Cool. And then you said you're for higher taxes for the guys that are making more money.
Not okay. Just to clarify, I'm talking about like the genuine like billionaires. Like for example, California, the tax system is ridiculous.
Yep.
Like they took, I think, 45% of my income in total when you add up state and federal taxes last year, and I would have used that money to hire more people. So the logic is like we're going to take this money and distribute it to those who need it, but I actually would have used that money to hire like 5 more of my friends and pumped it back into the economy. I don't believe that entrepreneurs who are like around that like $1 million, $2 million to $10 million level should even be taxed. But I'm talking about when people are hoarding such absurd amounts of wealth, multi-billion dollars. I just think that it should, to a certain extent, be distributed, not necessarily in the way of like the government seizes all of their assets and gives it to the poorest people, but there has to be a way to bridge the extreme divide in income inequality in the country.
Okay, so check this out. You just answered a very important question that took me a while to figure out. When I was making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, I'm like, dude, these rich people are greedy. You know, they suck. They should pay more taxes. It's not fair. Then when I started working my ass off and I built a business, and the money came in, I'm like, dude, if I had the money, I would hire 5 more people right now. If I had that money, I would hire 10 more people right now, right? You're thinking about it and you literally would. And if you don't, you go buy a car, you're creating jobs. If you don't, you put it in a bank, the bank's gonna lend it to somebody. If you don't, you put it in a mutual fund, that company is working, someone's getting paid. No matter where the money flows, it's creating jobs, right? So the question on raising of the taxes, do you think you're more capable of doing good with your money or the government can?
That's a really, really good question in terms of like personal financial liberty. I mean, as far as that question goes, obviously you would be better at spending your own money than the government if you're managing a business. But the fact is that once you get past a certain threshold of wealth, a lot of people are just hoarding it and not pumping it back into the economy. Like back in the day with Reagan, when he installed supply side economics, the idea was, oh my God, it's going to stimulate the economy so much if we give no taxes to billionaires who run corporations. But what happened is they ended up just kind of hoarding the money, buying more estates, jets, vacations, living a lavish lifestyle, because there's a human tendency to just want to be as much of a baller as possible when you have $1 billion. It's just how people are. Everybody wants to flex, get the nicest car, get a helicopter, do things that you can't do, things that you've dreamed of when you were playing like Grand Theft Auto as a child.
So, but go there with that. Let's say you're the greedy billionaire, okay? What's a greedy billionaire about?
Oh, damn.
Just
You're
tell me.
asking me like,
You
what
wanna do
would I buy if I was
what
a greedy
net worth do you
billionaire?
want to do? You want to do 100 million, you want to do billion, or you want to stick to billionaires?
Yeah, let's stick to people who are making, multi-billion dollars every year.
How about let's say billionaires enough?
Okay.
What does a rich billionaire buy? What things do they buy?
Well, what first thing that comes to mind for me is a pool, like an infinity pool that bleeds directly into the Pacific Ocean.
Beautiful.
A fleet of jet skis for all of my friends.
Okay.
So we can kind of travel.
I love it. Keep going, bro.
Corporate real estate on the water, so we can jet ski from the house to work.
I love it. This is like Larry Ellison. You ever seen Larry Ellison's headquarters?
No, I haven't.
So this guy's from Oracle. This is the kind of shit that you're talking about. Type in Larry Ellison headquarter, parks his yacht. Parks his yacht. Something like that. And then go to images if you could. So this guy builds his headquarters. Oracle, put in Oracle Ellison headquarters. Is ship? Maybe type in ship. Type in if that comes. Maybe go to Oracle's headquarters. Okay, just take out the yacht. This guy built his headquarters. I don't know which one this is. He builds a place to put his yacht. I'll find it. I'll text it to you here in a minute. He literally parks his boat in front of the property. Yeah. Whether it's Intel or Oracle, it's one of the two. But okay. What else? So far we got infinity pool on the water at the Pacific, Ocean. You got jet skis, and then you have a corporate real estate on the water to jet ski from office to the house.
Yeah, personal trainer, private chef,
personal trainer,
nutritionist,
private chef,
dermatologist to live on scene to help me with my skin problems.
Dermatologists, love it. You need these dermatologists. Who else?
I can't even think about it. I just know that once you pass a certain amount of money, it becomes a competition as to who can get the most
give
flashy
me more,
thing.
bro. Go greedy. What else is this billionaire going to buy?
Okay.
I want more. Get creative.
Okay, well, I'm
Is he
trying to
gonna
think
have a
what kind of
helicopter?
billionaire. Am I a tech billionaire or am I like a Saudi royal family member?
Give me both of them.
Okay. I can't even think of anything else.
Yeah, but okay, let's just say private jet. Is that fair?
Yeah.
You for sure have a private jet. Let's just say yacht. Do you have a vacation home?
Yeah, in Santa Fe.
In Santa Fe.
Oh, no, that's where Jeffrey Epstein had. I got to pick somewhere else. I got to pick that. I scratch that.
That's tough.
I have a vacation home.
Gene Hackman,
on the west coast of Jamaica, Westmoreland Parish.
Holy shit, good taste.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you do to hoard the money? Where do you hoard your money?
You could just sit on it.
But what do you sit on? Like, what bank?
Well, what a lot of
institution?
billionaires do is they use their money to kind of like use the legal system, civil court in particular, to bully people who talk badly about them.
Yeah, but that's like...
it's happening to me right now.
Yeah, I get that part, but I'm saying, what do they buy? But let's even say that. So that means they hire a PR firm and lawyers, right? So they hire PR firms and lawyers. Okay? Do they buy expensive watches?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I personally wouldn't buy a watch.
Prices are blowing up, except on Kayak. Get cheaper flights this summer on Kayak. Search now.
But they probably do it.
Yeah.
Crazy. I don't know why they do this kind of stuff. What else? What else do these guys do?
I feel like I'm being set up right now. Where does this end?
This is where I'm going with this.
If there's something that I don't know about billionaires, I want you to tell me.
I tell you what it is. Here's how I process it. So if they have an infinity pool, does it have to be maintained?
Yeah, but okay, I see what you're saying. There is pool staff that needs to make sure the water there's not too much chlorine going into the ocean.
Do they have to be maintained though? Somebody has to take care of it on a weekly basis. To build an infinity pool, Rob, how much, put average price of building an infinity pool in Malibu, okay? Let's just average price of infinity pool building in Malibu, California. Yeah, California. Let's just say what it says, price point. 250, 500, 200, I don't know what the number's gonna be. Give us a price point on infinity pool, estimated cost 65 to 150.
That's actually a lot less expensive than I thought it would be.
And watch what it says. In luxury infinity pool, 150 can exceed to $500,000. That's a lot of jobs that people are going to get paid. Okay, if you buy jet skis, let's say it's $25,000 for a good jet ski.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
But you're right. For a good jet ski,
you're creating a job,
and you
right?
need to get 6 to 8 so that you and your core employees
fucking
can
clown
continue to work
doing?
together like some kind of fleet.
That's right. We got to do it the right way. You can't screw around with this one here. Headquarters, corporate headquarters on the water.
Expensive.
Construction workers, plumbers, electrician. It's a lot of jobs being created, right? If you have a private personal trainer, that's a job you're creating.
Yeah.
If you have a chef, that's a job you're creating.
Okay, I get the point you're trying to make.
Yeah.
People should be able to get nice things for themselves if they work super hard.
But that's
I'm not the kind of guy who's like, if you work hard, you have to.
Yeah.
You should give all your money to people who are, are on the lower income.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that like the specific tax rate should be a little bit higher, not ridiculously higher, but higher enough to where they can have substantial social welfare programs.
My biggest challenge with that is even the greediest of the greediest who goes and is like flaunting a big ass platinum gold chain that they're putting around their neck that they bought for whatever that somebody took 3 months to build. No matter what it is, the money is flowing. Even if they put the money in the bank and they're sitting on it, the bank is lending it back to somebody. So money's always working. Chase is not going to let money stay in the bank.
Yeah.
The moment you put money in Chase, guess what Chase is doing? Chase is lending it to somebody ASAP. They don't want the money to stay in the bank. They're not making money like that. So no matter what you do, the basis of this question for me goes, who's going to do better with the money? Giving it to the government, because you said what right after when I said taxes, you said in California, what did you say? Let me go back to it. You said in California, the taxes that you're paying 45%, but then at the same time, taxes are not being used effectively.
Right.
How much of that are we going through right now?
Well, I mean, on the inverse, and what do you think will solve the problem of the extreme poverty and wealth inequality in the country?
Well, let's see. California's been trying to do it.
Well, the thing is, they tried. That's the thing is, everyone sees Gavin Newsom as like an enabler for all these destructive democratic policies, but he still makes concessions to conservatives who are like bullying him into not carrying it out. For example, let's take the Tenderloin in San Francisco, which is still the biggest open air drug zone in the city. Been that way for decades. He, obviously during the Biden administration and when Newsom was in control, he still is. It was a crazy scene out there. There was people smoking fentanyl on the streets, people defecating and sleeping in the streets. Yeah, in this particular area.
Is there a clip you want him to show?
No, I think we can just overlay it or something. But I mean, in general, Governor Newsom was being kind of like shit on for letting that happen. But the reality is, and people on the ground know this, there was supposed to be a safe injection site that was 2 blocks long, 2 blocks wide. It was supposed to be maintained by the state and the city. So it made it so people wouldn't be able to use heroin, fentanyl, and meth on the streets. They would have to go to a controlled environment where the public and children and people who were living in that community wouldn't have to interact with them, and they could have the access to the services they need. At the last minute, Governor Newsom didn't build it because he was too scared of getting another media smear campaign and being made to seem like someone who lets people do drugs in the open, but he still does drugs in the open. So with the Democratic establishment in California, there's a lot of hypocrisy, and there's a lot of We don't know where the money's going. There's not much transparency as far as what's happening with all these taxes that are being taken away from people who worked hard to make that money. We do know that $1 trillion of wealth have left California in the past 4 years. We do know that cities like San Francisco and LA that are still generating a ton of money, much of that money isn't even being pumped back into the city because so many workers have gone remote. There's a lot of people working in California that decide not to live there because they can do their work for tech companies remotely elsewhere in a more affordable state like Montana.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so I think that when you look at progressive policies and you look at poverty and it's not changing, and then you look at the tax rate going up and down, it can be easy to say, you know what, nothing's ever going to change. And that's why there's so much like a sense of apathy and nihilism when it comes to the billionaire thing. That's why people are saying, oh, billionaires are the worst, kill them all, like on the internet, because they've seen nothing change, and they're seeing, okay, the cost of living is high, there's homeless people everywhere, there's so much poverty, yet there's this class of people who are unaffected by it. So the question is then, if we don't raise the taxes, what can be done to change that situation on the ground?
The taxes?
No, I mean the situation with inequality and poverty.
Yeah, but that's not how it works, though, because to me, here's how it works. Okay, let's just say you got 3 sons, and they're all 25 years old, okay? And you're 60 years old at this time. Could you be? Yeah, 60. Yeah, 25, 60. Let's just say you're 65 years old. You got 3 sons, 25, 26, 27. They're all out of college. You give each of them $100,000. First one you give $100,000, he goes to Singapore. He parties, he comes back, has a lot of stories. Says, Dad, I tried an opportunity. I met with this businessman in Singapore. Didn't work out. I need another $250,000. I'm up to something big. Second son comes up. You give him $100,000. He takes $100,000, go buys a small condo, gets a nice little job, makes $120,000 a year, doesn't need any money from you anymore. He's doing okay. He's happy. He's got a girlfriend. They're pretty serious. Third one, you give $100,000, takes $100,000, starts a little real estate shop, turns it into $3.2 million, okay? 2 years later. Now they're all 2 years older. The first son, you give $100,000, went to Singapore, comes back because he wants a quarter. The second wants a quarter. The third one wants a quarter. Which of those 3 are you more comfortable giving more money to, knowing you're going to get a rate of return on your money? The first, the second, or the third?
Probably the first, right?
What, the first?
Yeah.
The guy that went to Singapore?
Oh, no, not that guy. My bad. I kind of got lost in the metaphor here because I was just thinking about
So the first guy is Singapore. The second guy is a stable guy, good citizen, gets a job.
Number 2.
Or the third one that starts a business and makes the money grow for you.
I mean, probably the three because it would be a bigger investment. But I mean, aside from a business standpoint, like if we obviously, you recognize that there's a big problem with homelessness, poverty, and unaffordability.
Well, why do you think that is, though?
What do you think?
I'm asking you. You're in the streets. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I would just assume that because the social safety net is so small here and there's such little being provided for people in terms of mental health services, the broken Veterans Administration, so many different things, unaffordability, like there's just not enough resources to set up to help people who are at rock bottom here.
You think we haven't given enough money? So to me, when you ask the question, if we don't raise the taxes, then how are we going to fix this? To me, the question becomes, the last 30 times we agreed to give you more money, you wasted it. Why should we trust you to give you more money? Because if I give money to Amazon, if I give money in a company like NVIDIA, if I give money to Tesla, if I give money to Ford or Disney, and I buy the stock and I'm like a believer, here's what's going to be happening. I kind of can track publicly. There's accountability, there's accounting, there's quarterly earnings, there's calls to get on. If I give more money to the government, what is the quarterly earnings?
Yeah.
Where's the accountability?
No, I totally agree
Where's
with
accounting?
you. I agree
Why
with you.
Why am I giving money to that? There's no way logically one would give money to a company or a business that I don't get to see what you did with my money. There's no tracking to it.
Hey, I agree. I do think that like we can both agree that like, you know, throwing money at things doesn't always fix the problem. But you've been around for longer than me. Like if it's not that, if it's not funding programs to provide for people who are down and out, like what do we do? Because the problem is already here. Like it's not in theory. Like there's 100,000 people who are homeless in LA alone and San Francisco combined. So it's like, what do we do? What's the solution? Do you have any like wisdom as to what you think would happen?
Do you think long term you'll live in LA? You said earlier you're considering leaving, right?
Well, that's the thing, as I love the landscape and the people of California so much. Where I live now, I'm an hour and a half from the beach, hour and a half from the Mojave Desert. Can drive to Vegas or Tijuana, can get to the Bay. In Florida, kind of just in Florida.
So would you see yourself living there long term? Because we're gonna document this. Because we're gonna come back when you come to Florida. I'm gonna say, how's it feel being a Floridian?
I like being in Florida because you can feel like it's kind of like Texas right now, where things are moving. You can feel people are like excited about new projects, and it doesn't have this air of like a bygone greatness that LA has. I have an office in Universal City. It's my first ever Channel 5 office that I opened 4 months ago, and there's a cafe that's abandoned in the lobby. It looks like I moved into like a Ford Motor Company factory in Detroit. There's only 4 people working in this giant building, and like I remember the janitor came by, he was mopping the floor, and he like pointed at some derelict office, and he goes, "That's where Michael Jackson recorded Beat It." And I was just like, Jesus Christ, you really feel like you're in like a post-Rust Belt decline society.
What's the address? Where are you at?
I don't want to say it exactly.
But is it like what part of Universal? Like close to?
Across from Universal Studios.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like literally there's this like bygone. There's in the air you can feel that the place has seen better days.
Like by Disney and where Forest Lawn is, give or take.
Exactly.
Okay.
I had a makeup artist come by when I was having a lot of breakouts or whatever, and so she came by and she was so happy, and I was like, "Why are you so happy?" She goes, "I haven't had work in 2 months." She said before COVID, every single day I was on set for a different awesome director, getting to do makeup for the stars, and she says now I have to travel to Poland or Taiwan to find work because that Hollywood is moving their productions to different continents just to save money on staff.
So why do you think? Why are people leaving?
Taxes.
Okay.
Money.
So why else? Why else do you think they're leaving? You think it's just taxes?
There's a couple different, okay, so there's Hollywood leaving, they're leaving to save money. Comedy leaving is because of the culture of the coastal cities. Tech left for a little bit because remote work was more profitable, but tech is returning to Silicon Valley. So I think tech is still going for California, but those 3 big industries, Hollywood, tech, and then comedy, all left for different reasons. But comedy's for sure because of the culture of California.
So long term, you're kind of open to leaving to Austin or Florida or something?
Yeah, at some point in my life. But I mean, I also just love California. I also believe in it. I could see California having a second wind. I mean, it's obviously...
How did they get it? How did they get a second wind?
I mean, new leadership.
So, like, such as who? Is there anyone that you think that could turn things around?
No, not right now, but maybe... like, maybe a rising star could emerge from the ashes.
And that rising star that emerges from the ashes, what would you want that person's policies to be on? Like, what would
Take the money that...
We reached out to several other packaging companies. Most of them weren't interested in doing business with us because the volume we were talking about was way under their limits. When we talked with Container and Packaging, we got a completely different response, allowing us to order small, but knowing that we could ramp up.
Use all of that tax money to provide for people who are sleeping on the streets and dying on the streets, provide robust mental health services, shelter options, opportunities to people who have been basically dejected by society, clean up the street, for the amount that we're being taxed in California, it should be a utopian society. And when you talk about homelessness, another problem is that people say, oh, there's so many homeless people in California because of the progressive policies. But it also has to do with the fact that homelessness has been criminalized so heavily in red states and counties that people are leaving those counties to California so they don't go to jail. I don't know if you're familiar with the Grants Pass, Oregon ruling. It's a rural county in Oregon, which is a blue state. And it ruled that if you're a homeless person, because of vagrancy laws, you can be taken to jail and cited even if there's no shelter beds available for sleeping in the street. And if you get your 3rd vagrancy citation, it's a mandatory 90 days in county jail. So a lot of people who are homeless, suffering from, different mental disorders and substance abuse issues, they're like, all right, I don't want to go to jail. I'm going to go to LA. So then you have all of these mental health and support services being overwhelmed by people who are migrating from red counties and states. So I think that the solution is, I wish this was viewed as an America problem as opposed to a Dems versus Republican problem. Because, when you politicize people who are going through like hardcore suffering, it can be easy to overlook their suffering and use them as political cannon fodder if you're Republican or Democratic.
Yeah, and I think you're coming from a very sincere place that you want to improve. This is why I said I can't wait to watch your journey. It's exciting to watch you go through what you're going through right now, because in the business world, here's how it works. If you have $1 billion, your name is Bill Ackman, and my name is John Doe. I come to you and I say, hey, Bill, I need $20 million from you. Really? Tell me what your background looks like. Mm-hmm. First deal, I put $20,000 of my own money. My dad gave me $100,000. My uncle and family gave me $500,000. I sold the business for $32 million. Second company, I put $2 million of my own money. It failed, moved on, didn't work out for a year. But I didn't take money from anybody else. Third company, I took $20 million, turned it into $180 million, and I sold the business. Fourth one is the one I'm doing right now, and I want $20 million from you.
Yeah.
Will you consider giving me money? Yes, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So number one is a guy like Newsom has credibility issue. Mm-hmm. We want to give you more money for what? I'm not comfortable with this. So liberal policies have lost credibility to get more money. Number two, reputation. If your policies are so good, why are 27 out of 30 cities in America that are the most unsafest cities in America ran by Democratic mayors. That's data, 27 out of 30, right? So you have all these years to fix the issues. How come you haven't? Third one for me is the following. Had a friend of mine who, if you ever went to dinner with him, he wouldn't order dessert once. He would eat more dessert than steak. Like, to him, it's like, let me try this ice cream and bring this one out and bring the carrot cake and bring this and bring the tres leches, and he's just eating it, right? And he says, you know, I'm about to do the stomach stapling here coming up. I said, really? Yeah. I said, shit. And he says, really, you going to this? Yeah. He goes and staples his stomach, loses 50 pounds. Literally, he loses 50 pounds, okay? So now he can't keep anything down. But guess what he still eats?
Dessert.
Same exact thing.
Key lime pie.
Key lime pie,
Yeah.
the whole nine, right? All of it, right? The strawberry sorbet, give me all of it, right? So his habits didn't change. So even though we stapled the stomach, he still kept doing the same thing. So when he asked the question, how do we fix this homelessness problem? Money to me is Band-Aid. Money to me is stapling the stomach. Money to me is not changing the habits. Money to me is not getting rid of the bad behavior that they have. It's not going to do that. It's standard and protocols. So if somebody feels safer, it's like a kid who wants to come and hang out with you and your dad smokes weed.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be with me because I'm a tougher dad that I don't smoke weed. You're like, man, that dad is cool. You're not cool. California is the cool dad smokes weed with you.
Yeah.
Texas is like, no, you come to my house and smoking weed, you get your ass kicked out of the house.
Yeah.
So,
but you can bring your gun to my house.
But that's okay because I
That's
feel
Texas.
safer. But I will feel safer for some of the people because we're a Second Amendment country,
Totally.
right? Yeah, that's the part where it's the back and forth for me, where if your ideas have credibility that you've done well, let's give you more.
Yeah.
But they've lost so much credibility where people don't want to raise taxes because you don't have credibility right now to ask for more.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying about the safe injection site in San Francisco. That would have solved the problem of open air drug use in the area.
You think so?
Oh, definitely.
Tell me why.
Because people aren't going to get cited. They're not going to get, I mean, most of the open air
Is that
drug
a Band-Aid or is that permanently fixing something?
I mean, if the safe injection site was also had, harm reduction services, had mental health treatment options, had people working there day in, day out trying to help people get back on their feet, it would not fix the problem. There's still going to be drug use and homelessness no matter what, but it would allow for an exit ramp for those who want to make that choice, as opposed to, living literally outside of people's apartments, shooting up and passing out.
You ever heard of Jared Klickstein?
No.
You know who he is? So can you pull him up, Rob? Jared Klickstein. I had him on the podcast 3 months ago. So this guy was in Skid Row for 7 years, okay? He lived there, homeless guy, heroin addict. His mother, Rob, if I'm not mistaken, died from heroin, right, at 14 years old when he was 14. And then his dad was a heroin addict. He eventually got off of it. This guy becomes an addict. He starts selling. He goes to Skid Row. Every day he's stealing $1,000 on the streets, CVS stores, and he's selling it for $300. That was the rate. And he comes in and he talks about, he wrote a book, I don't know what the book, A Crooked Smile. Is there a picture of what he did to himself, why he calls it Crooked Smile? So he explains, I asked him, I said, tell me what happened there with LA. Okay, what was the problem with you being homeless? And then he breaks down the incentive program of him constantly going through it.
Yeah.
This guy burned his own lip that he had to do surgery. He was so high on drugs that he burned his own lip. I mean, he's got a mustache now, but he openly talks about it, where he titled the video Crooked Smile.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think this guy would be a very interesting guy for you in LA to go to Skid Row to document stuff with him.
Yeah.
Because he can give you a different perspective because he was there for 7 years.
Yeah.
That would be a very interesting thing. But can you go to the $24 billion number, Rob? I don't know if you follow this number or not. California State Audit revealed that a substantial amount of money allocated for homelessness program, roughly $24 billion, over the past 5 years was not consistently tracked or evaluated to determine if it was effectively addressing the crisis. The lack of tracking and evaluation led to a lack of transparency in how the funds were spent.
Right. So
whether they were actually helping or not. And guess what? Homelessness from 5 years ago was lower then than it is now, but they lost $24 billion.
Nowadays, more than ever, the brand you wear reflects and represents who you are. So for us, if you wear a Future Looks Bright hat or a Valuetainment gear, you're telling the world, I'm optimistic. I'm excited about what's going to be happening, but you're a free thinker. You question things. You like debate. And by the way, last year, 120,000 people got a piece of Future Looks Bright gear with Valuetainment. We have so many new things. The cufflinks are here. New Future Looks Bright. This is my favorite, the green one. Just yesterday, somebody placed an order for 100 of these. If you watch the PBD podcast, you got a bunch to choose from. White ones, black ones. If you If you smoke cigars and you come to our cigar lounge, we have this high quality lighter cutter and a holder for the cigars. We got sweaters with the Valuetainment logo on it. We got mugs. We got a bunch of different things. But if you believe the future looks bright, if you follow our content and what we represent with Valuetainment, with PVD Podcast, go to VTmerch.com. And by the way, if you order right now, there's going to be a special VT gift inside just for you. So again, go to VTmerch.com, place your order, tell the world that you believe the future looks bright.
So we're talking about throwing money at something. There was money, but it wasn't being funded to the right places. So in theory, there's probably a world in which the money isn't being embezzled or given to the wrong people.
Why?
Well, obviously
Who embezzled it?
Newsom's administration.
Yeah. So then, but what side of the political aisle is that?
I would not describe the Democrats who control California as leftists or progressives.
What would you call them?
Liberals, Democrats.
Liberals and Democrats?
I think it's different.
You can't put a price on peace of mind, especially when it comes to building your new home. That's why Lancia Homes locks in your price the moment you sign a purchase agreement with us. So even if material...
So what's the difference?
I think liberals are more oriented in maintaining power for themselves, dominating the political landscape of the state.
You don't think leftists are?
I don't think leftists have any semblance of political power in the U.S.
Why do you think?
I just think they've been disenfranchised by the liberal establishment, the Democratic establishment. I think progressive people's movements. Also, if you look at, there's been over a half a century plus of infiltration of these organizations by the FBI, breaking them down. And we're not just talking about communists and far left stuff here. We're talking about people's organizations, Black Panthers, Brown Berets, American Indian Movement, farm workers unions, environmental groups. They were all infiltrated and taken down by the government. And so you have the Democratic establishment claiming to be a progressive organization, but I do not think that they are.
So, it makes me think. Anthony Scaramucci said something very interesting the other day. Actually, very interesting. Where he said, a guy, the way the U.S. System is set up is, guy said, I'm going to go be a Congress because I think I can make some changes. And you realize you can't do shit. I'm going to go be a senator because that's where the power is. I can make some changes. And you can't do shit. I'm going to go be president because, you can't do shit. So the American system is built that somebody can't. So even if the leftists that you think could change something, if they get in, they still have to go through the other people that if you give the money to them, it's not like they're going to personally go count the money and do something good with it.
Yeah.
The money is still going to go to these institutions that's ran by people that have been there for decades that you can't do nothing about them.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing and kind of goes back to the Luigi Mangione thing. When you talk about this deeply entrenched bureaucracy that's halting change, that kind of thing makes sense.
You know what it makes me think about, though? It makes me think about what would you trust more, a bigger government or a smaller government?
Small.
Yeah.
Small but effective in actually working for the people.
So small government means more money stays with you and I. Leave it in the market. I trust you knowing better what to do with the money with $1 million than the government.
Yeah.
I trust you instead of paying 45% of, let's just say you made $1 million last year, 45% went to taxes. You kept $550. How many more jobs would you have had if that was only 20%?
Yeah.
And you would have kept that $250,000. What, realistically, let's just say you had an additional $250 last year of tax saving. What would you have done with the $250 in California?
Hired more employees, been able to expand the newsroom at a quicker pace. We expanded to the Middle East and in Mexico and elsewhere as well. The UK and New Zealand would have been able to do that a little bit faster. I was still able to do it, but definitely it's there's not quite a sting like getting an invoice from the IRS after working your ass off for an entire year. And like I said, that sting wouldn't be as bad if they were using the money well. I mean, if I was living in a world where there was no traffic, where people were happy, and there wasn't this massive, working class despair taking over, you could feel it in the air in California and elsewhere in the entire country. If that didn't exist, I would probably be okay with a higher tax rate because I would say, okay, well, I don't have to. People at large, the community, this American experiment is progressing in a mutually beneficial way.
Yeah, but if they were efficient, they wouldn't need to tax us more. You get what I'm saying? Because
like if there wasn't such bureaucracy in the government and the IRS.
Yeah, and so bless you. So, but to me, it's also deeper than that. Think about it. Like, let's just say I got 5 C-suites that are working for me: a CMO, chief marketing officer, CFO, CTO technology, chief strategy officer, and chief compliance officer. And we have a meeting at the end of the year. What's your budget? My budget is $5 million. My budget is $4 million. My budget is $3 million. My budget is $10 million. Great. If a guy at the end of the year had a $5 million budget, but ended up hitting his budget for the year and the BHAG, but they did it on 80% of the budget. So they didn't spend $5 million. He spent $4 million. You're like, dude, good job. right? You save the company 20% of your budget. But if a guy that had a $10 million budget doesn't hit his goal but asks for $15 million and spends $50 million, you don't have credibility.
Yeah.
So it's that simple that for me, I would much rather take more power away from them because they don't have a track record of getting good things done.
Yeah.
They keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger at what expense? So that's the part where I think a part of why Kennedy and Trump's are so hated is because the one thing those two have in common is the establishment couldn't stand these guys because they couldn't control them. What do they have in common? They both have money. And they both had the ears of who?
Yeah.
Some of the most powerful people in Hollywood, and they liked them.
Yeah.
Trump on the right, Kennedy on the left.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of like that relationship where they were both hated. CIA, FBI, the Fed, who the hell are these guys? Trump's not getting along with the Fed. Kennedy didn't get along with the Fed. There's some of those commonalities where, now, the flip side of it, guess what Trump and his camp have to do? If they don't produce results, guess what happens?
What?
Oh, the other side's going to come out and say, you had him. What did they do? Nothing.
And that's kind of where I'm at as well. Like, I'm obviously not a big Trump guy, but if positive things happen for the country during the Trump term in these next 4 years, I'm going to report on that. You know, I'm not dedicated to making Trump look
I know
bad.
you are. No,
you know
I know, I know you are, yeah.
If great things start happening, it's not like I'm going to look for an alternate angle that undermines the success. I'm just looking at how average people are living every day, happiness and, fulfillment.
Very cool. Chicago. You went to Chicago, right?
Yeah, back in the day. I covered a music festival called Lyrical Lemonade or Summer Smash. And I went to O-Block the next day. And somehow that became my most watched video of all time.
13 million views. Yeah, that was sick. I love it. It's sick.
Yeah.
Why do you think it was so special? Why do you think it did so well?
Well, O-Block is like the genesis of drill music.
You mind if we played?
Yeah, sure.
Rob, go ahead and play it. Go ahead. You're saying O-Block is the genesis?
O-Block is the genesis of drill music, which is a subgenre of rap, which is hyper violent and focuses on real life violence. It's actually been a pretty destructive cultural force, to be honest with you. But O-Block is where it started. So it's kind of like, how people would go to Mississippi to document the origin story of blues, or they go to New Orleans for jazz, or they go to Nashville for country. Chicago and South Chicago is like that for drill music. And I think that in 100 years, there's going to be drill tours in the same way that there's a Kentucky bourbon trail where people will drink the whole way and go say, this is where Pappy Van Winkle put his 15-year barrel up for sale in 1798. They're going to do this in O-Block and be like, this is where Chief Keef was born in the year 1995. Wow. And there's going to be people in 2150 like, oh my God, that's so crazy.
What is that peak? Rob, go back on the video. At the beginning, there was a peak all the way to the about first part, first 2 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
What is that? What is that peak? What happens here? Press play.
GDK. Come on. GDK. Folks came out there. Folks the youngest GDK member. He invented that shit.
To you, what is drill music?
We started the word drill with our music. Let's do a drill. We started that shit.
How would you explain drill music to someone who doesn't know?
Music that make you want to kind of get outside and go just be outside. You know what I mean? Make sense?
Pause. So means what? Meaning you can go outside and cause mayhem? Kill somebody. That's literally what he's saying.
It's pretty dark, but I mean, drill has now become one of rap's mainstream sounds.
How safe did you feel?
Pretty safe, honestly, only because people don't understand this now. All hoods in America, all poor neighborhoods that have music in them and have micro influencers, they recognize content as a viable avenue for income. Back in the day, if this was 2005, pre-YouTube, you could never go to somebody's hood just as a voyeur and film with them. But now there's kind of an informal agreement that's why there's so many hood vlogs now, is they recognize that being featured on a predominant, a major YouTube channel could be their take it out. People are going to see them. It could be their, it could be their moment for more exposure and attention. And especially O-Block is probably the most famous housing project in the U.S. And I had a big YouTube channel, so it just happened really fast.
One of the craziest things you did is when you went to who's the Keys? What was it? Kias?
I'll break it down. So the Kia boys are a car
we
theft
talked about it on the podcast. Go for it.
In the beautiful coastal town of Bridgeport, Connecticut.
That's
and
right.
They're in high school. For an update, I heard the Kia boys aren't stealing cars anymore. Part of that has to do with the security update that was installed in the push-to-start system.
They can't do it anymore?
Yeah, you can't do it anymore. Unless somebody hasn't gotten the software update. But one of them's in jail. One of them just disappeared, and the third guy is working at a factory, and he bought his own car, and it's not a Kia. He bought an American-made car.
Seriously?
That's the real message of this
Can you put
documentary.
the
Buy
video of
American.
him being in the car, Rob? When you're in the car, where is it where you're in the car?
Well, I should have put 2 and 2 together, but yeah, they picked me up in a car, and they're like, "Yo, let's hang out." And I got in the car, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and I thought about it, and I'm like, "Wait a second, this is a Kia. Holy shit, I'm in the back of a stolen car with 3
Is this
juveniles."
Green Goblin. This'll be a blast.
With a special tool and clears the broken
A
glass
little bit
with his
before.
bare
Back
hands.
up a little bit. So this is a crazy scene. So back up like maybe, yeah.
This
further.
shows what they were doing.
So they picked me up at the McDonald's
the
in
car.
Bridgeport. I'm riding with them in the back of this car. Sometimes I don't realize what's happening until it's too late, for example, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but when I hopped the border, I didn't realize that I had to hop it with the Coyotes until I was at the Rio Grande. I'm sitting in the back of this stolen, I think it was a Mazda actually, not a Kia, and I'm thinking, holy shit, they stole this car. And then I look around, I look in the rear view mirror, and there's a cop trailing us. And so I say to these Kia boys, I say, "Hey guys, pull over, I gotta hop out." Because I'm thinking, like, I'm 25, these kids are 16, I don't know what they're gonna charge me with. And so,
Keep playing it, Rob.
and the kid sitting in shotgun named Swervo, he looks at me and he goes, "Homie, you shouldn't have hopped in the car if you weren't ready to do the dash," meaning, you know, go on a high-speed chase. And so they turn the lights off and they just go 105 miles an hour, and the cop stops following them. So
Play? I want to see this, Rob. I'm going to go back 30 seconds. Press play. Let me hear the
roads
audio.
for cops. They said they'd had the car for over a week now.
That's 105
and after
miles
being
an hour?
reported as
No,
a
no,
stolen
not
car
yet.
to
This is
local
before the
police,
cops
it was
rolled
getting
us.
hotter and hotter to drive by the day. No less than 2 minutes into our drive, I began to hear police sirens. Perhaps naively, I assumed the Kia boys would just pull over and try to talk their way out of it, but no. Swervo dipped onto a service road and hit the gas, approaching 110 miles per hour.
You're sitting outside or you're inside?
I'm sitting in the back seat.
He turned off the police already. Y'all know.
By some stroke of luck, the cops stopped pursuing us. I'm not sure why.
Now
By
I know
this
why.
point, my adrenaline
The
is
cops don't pursue
Time seems to move in hyperspeed.
high-speed
but
chases with stolen cars because they figure like it's such a public safety risk. You know what I mean? If it's a residential street, they don't want 2 cars going 105 miles an hour because that could like kill a pedestrian or something. So the cops, they abandoned us. Not abandoned us. They stopped following us. And then I told them to drop me back off at the McDonald's. And then so my plan was like I want to document these guys, but I don't want to be in this situation again. So I gave them my camcorder for the night. And I said, I know you guys are going to go steal cars. I don't want to come with you. I don't condone that. But just do me a favor and take this camcorder from Best Buy and just film yourself.
What a great concept.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And were they honest enough that they brought it back to you?
Yeah, you want to watch the footage?
Do you have it?
Yeah, it's in the video.
Where's it at the end or?
If you skip ahead 10, 15 seconds, we're right there.
Press play. Let's see what they. This is them.
Then goes to put a cheap
After this,
USB
it's
cord
gonna
into
start.
the
Let's just see
ignition.
this. Let's watch this.
I think it's got the update.
He says the car is a dud. The driver recently installed the anti-theft software update.
So this is all
They had to
filmed
find
by
something
his
else.
homie.
Just a few cars down, he locates a 2010 Kia Forte and starts all over.
Cut himself.
After successfully activating the engine with a USB cord, Swervo's on the move.
That's me watching
and I'm
him.
following close behind, genuinely curious as to what his plan is. Swervo begins driving as fast as he possibly can, then comes to a stop and tells me it's time to turn up.
Alright, let's turn up.
Lower the audio, Rob. Yeah.
So yeah, that's their plan is they just start swerving. They're really like 16 years old. Like they swerve for like 20 minutes and then they just abandon the car.
You're joking. So
Swear
they
to
don't go sell the car. They just.
Well, apparently like they sell it to their like older brothers for I think $250. Then they go to the mall and get shoes and the weed socks.
And what do the older brothers do?
Crime, real crime. Well, I'm not saying this isn't a real crime, but like, you know, robbing people, you know, gang.
This is low-level stuff.
Yeah,
you
like,
know?
they sell drugs and stuff. I don't know.
What was your experience when you're on the flight coming back? What are you saying to yourself?
Well, I didn't even put this in the documentary, but I guess the cops had still been following us. So I go back to the Red Roof Inn in Bridgeport, and the cops knock on the door, and they're like, "Do you see anybody with a stolen car around here?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about." Like, all right, thanks.
I don't know what.
Yeah, I was.
Wow.
I flew home.
So you didn't get arrested. Even when you put this up, cops never got a hold of you.
No, they might after this podcast, though. So, but
They
I've
might after this
Thankfully, the Kia boys are no longer stealing Kias. But yeah, after that, that was a classic example of just me taking it too far in the field with the documentary. Like, if I was to look back or looking forward in my own life, I'm not going to get in the back of any stolen cars with 16-year-olds in Connecticut or any other state for that matter.
Maybe in Fort Lauderdale.
Maybe. Oh, Broward County's got some pretty good drill music. I don't know if you know about that.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's called 954 Fast Pitch. It's like Broward's kind of version of drill. They take rap songs and they speed them up 1.25 times, so it kind of sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks. But that's like the Pompano Beach, like Lauderhill sound.
No shit.
You got to get one of those guys on the podcast.
You ever listen to Ben Shapiro?
I used to, yeah, for sure.
When I listen to him, he sounds like he talks in 1.5.
Ben Shapiro talks fast.
His speed is so fast. Like, you know, when you watch a podcast on Spotify, you can listen on 3.5. And I can handle it. The only person I can't listen to 3.5 is him.
Yeah, he
I have
really
to put
spits.
a 1.5 because he's like, something like that. I can't slow it down. You got to go to 0.75 with him because he's so fast.
In a different world, he could be a rapper.
He tried to be a rapper. Did you hear his rap song?
Yeah, I heard it.
I heard it. The guy he did it with is actually good.
Wait, what's the name
his
of the guy he did it with?
The guy he actually did it with is good. He's actually got good stuff. But what is the guy's name? He is really good. The guy right there, bottom second line.
Oh, Tom McDonald.
Tom McDonald. He's actually good.
Yeah,
He's
Tom
actually
McDonald's
good.
my favorite Trump rappers are Forgiato Blow, Bez Believe, and Bryson Gray. Those are the top three Trump
Bez
rappers. Believe. Yeah, Bez Believe. I met him at Hempfest. He used to sell those weed lollipops that are like medicated with CBD. He became a hardcore Trump rapper, but he's still like thugged out Florida style. Bez Believe, B-E-Z-Z Believe. He's a cool dude, and yeah, he's my favorite right-wing MC right now.
Right-wing MC. You like Little Pump?
Yeah, but I wouldn't call Lil Pump a conservative MC. Lil Pump is just kind of a product of the bygone SoundCloud rap era.
Yeah.
If that scene was still continuing, I don't think he would have done the Trump appearance.
Got it. Okay, let's go to the next one, Rob. Next one I want to go is the Tesla rally.
Yeah.
What was that like? Going to the Tesla, protesting the rally. What was that like?
I actually sent correspondence there. I sent my friend Albie here to the
you
Tesla
weren't there
boycott in
yourself.
Palo Alto. I was in Jamaica for like an anniversary trip at the time when this was going down. Then I sent another friend of mine to the one in Burbank. But yeah, it was kind of interesting, like with the Tesla boycott movement. I see it as a broader offshoot of the anti-Elon Stop the Coup movement. But then at some point after that began, they started targeting Tesla factories directly. And their idea was that if they lower, Tesla's stock price, that will in turn take away from Elon's economic power, which would disempower Trump in some capacity.
Right. And again, this goes back to the Joker to me. Because in the movie Joker, Elon would be Batman, and Joker would be the guys that are going after him, right? It's funny, we're in D.C. Is it January 20th? Is it inauguration, Rob?
Yes.
So we go to this
Oh,
party.
CPAC. It was actually CPAC.
Was it CPAC or
Yes.
inauguration?
No, because CPAC, because we went after CPAC, we had the invite.
Okay, so we're in DC, and there's this Doge party. And a guy invites us to go to this Doge party. And apparently Elon's going to be showing up. So we go to this party. I take my 13-year-old son. They're upstairs watching. If you pull up one of the clips, Rob, someone else who reported, it was reported all over the place. There's a couple of them. So we're there. We're walking. Pause it, Rob, so we can hear it. So we're walking. We get outside. There's the protesting across the street. I decide to walk up to these guys to just talk to them with my 13-year-old son.
Pretty bad call, I think.
Pretty bad call. I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
Well, watch this. This is my curiosity here. Go ahead and play the clip. Go ahead, Rob. This is the wrong clip, Rob, because the one is you got to show the clip.
So that one I can show you guys, but we can't show because it's copyrighted content. Just so you know. Yes.
But didn't we record it or no?
I can look for the best version is this one right here, but these are
We
the
can't show this as copy.
yes.
Well, why don't you show it so he can see it, and the audience, you guys can tweet this and see. This is me talking to the guy, just to kind of see where it's at. The guy in the ball to the right is a federal agent. Look what he does to him. Look at the spit coming up. Look at this. Boom. he
Oh,
spits
that
on
was
the
a
guy.
real loogie, damn.
Yeah.
Damn,
Full on.
it gives me real nostalgic flashbacks seeing somebody with a MAGA hat next to somebody with an N95 mask on. Those are the two. Those are the two real genders.
Here's a question for you. Do you, when you're out there, wow, you've not been out there. Maybe you're guys that came back. There's always, numbers that show up that some of these guys are paid agitators and paid protesters. When you've been out there, whether it's the Luigi Mangione or any of the other stuff, do you ever ask them the question, or did you guys get paid to do this?
Yeah, it's typically not true.
Typically not true?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a paid protester. I mean, it's a narrative that gets pushed a lot, which makes sense because there is NGOs that organize protests, but they're making that decision to do. Okay, there are groups that receive funding who decide themselves to protest, and they use some of that funding to do stuff like, make signs, but they're still making the decision most of the time. It's not like someone like George Soros is like, hey, go over there and have a sign that says Elon sucks. It's them being genuinely upset and thinking, okay, cool, let's use some of this funding to do something. On the other hand, I have actually seen, though, paid protest groups go into places that are more radical, like Portland and Seattle, and disrupt, more direct action movements. Like, for example, I remember
The Joe Rogan Experience.
And I get a call from this Japanese diplomat, and he invites me to lunch. I said, great. We meet at a place on Capitol Hill. And I remember that lunch very well. I remember we talked about Israeli elections, we talked about Turkish elections, and we talked about the Arab-Israeli peace process. And at the end of the lunch, he says to me, and I should add, his English was so bad that we had to do the lunch in Arabic. So he said, what's next for you? And I said, well, I think I'm going to resign soon. I promised Senator Kerry I'd give him 2 years. It's been 2.5. I have 5 kids, and I really need to make some money and put my kids through college. And he goes, oh, no, don't do that. If you give me information, I can give you money. And I said, what the fuck is wrong with you? You have any idea how many times I've made that pitch? Shame on you, cold pitching me like that. And I got up indignantly and I walked out. And I walked, I mean directly without stopping, to the office of the Senate security officer. And I knocked on the door. I went in, I said, hey, I was just pitched by a foreign intelligence officer. And he goes, was it that damn Russian again? And I said, no, it was Japanese. He goes, Japanese? I said, I know, right? He goes, well, no, sometimes they poke around looking for trade information. I said, this didn't have anything to do with trade information. I don't think. I don't know. We didn't even get that far. He said, okay, do me a favor. He said, I've got a standalone computer here that's not connected to the internet. Write it up as a memo, and I'm going to courier it over to the FBI. So I sat there and I wrote the whole thing, blow by blow. The next day he calls me, and he says, 2 FBI agents are going to come up and talk to you. And I said, okay. So they come up, I recount the whole lunch, and they said, all right, here's what we want you to do. We want you to call him back, invite him to lunch, and then try to get him to tell you exactly what information he wants and how much he's willing to pay for it. And I said, because I'm a patriot, I said, you want me to wear a wire? And they said, no, we're going to be at the next table. We're going to listen to everything. I said, but he only speaks Arabic. That's okay. We got a guy who speaks Arabic. Don't worry. I said, all right. So I call him. I invite him to lunch. We go to lunch, do the whole thing. But before the lunch, right before the lunch, they called and they said, operation came up. Just write us another memo. Do the lunch and write us another memo. I said, fine. So I wrote another memo. They asked me to do it a 3rd time, a 4th time, and a 5th time. The 5th time, he says to me, I have great news. He said, I got my dream job. I've been promoted and I'm going to be the deputy ambassador in Cairo. And I said, congratulations. I shook his hand, never saw him again. So I've written all this to the FBI. One day in January of 2012, so I've been out of the Senate for about 9 months, the FBI calls. And I look at my cell phone, it says Federal Bureau of Investigation. I was like, I wonder what that's all about. So I answer, and they said, hey, you remember that thing you helped us out with a year ago? And I said, yeah. And they said, we've got a similar situation, and we need your help. And again, because I'm a patriot, I said, anything for the FBI. I kick myself now for saying it. I said, anything for the FBI. What do you want me to do? They said, come down to the Washington field office Thursday morning at 10. I said, done. I go down there the next Thursday. And they're waiting for me at the entrance, which I thought was odd. And we go up to a conference room, and they said, we're both cleared, SI, TK, Gamma, and then there were 2 compartments above top secret that I was cleared for that they said they were cleared for. And so if the conversation necessitated it, we could go into that area. So they said, well, before we start, just wanted to ask you, just read your book. It was great. I loved it. Hey, what about this that you said in your book? And I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, it was a cool story. What about this other thing? Yeah, I had fun. I said, it was kind of hard. It took me 9 months to write the book, 22 months to get it cleared. Oh, yeah, you got it cleared. Yeah, of course I got it cleared. 22 months it took me to get it cleared. I'm thinking, what an odd question. Then they start asking me about something called the Sam Adams Project. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. And then the bad cop of the 2 says, we know you've been giving information to the Guantanamo defense attorneys. I said, what are you talking about? And then I said, wait a minute. Are you investigating me? And they said, yeah, and we're raiding your house right now as we speak. And I said, thank God. I said, I want to speak to my attorney right now. That was the only reason that they didn't arrest me. And one of the things that I learned, and this became painfully evident when they started arresting January 6th people, was the FBI in Washington likes to make its arrests on Thursdays because there are no federal arraignments on Friday. So you're in the DC jail Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, getting the shit beaten out of you. And then they arraign you on Monday. And then you want to make a deal just so you don't ever have to go inside that prison again. But because I asked to see my attorney, they let me go. So I called the attorney as soon as I got out of the office. Actually, when I was walking out, one of them went over to, I didn't know it at the time, but it was Peter Strzok. And Peter Strzok says, tell me he implicated himself. And the guy said, not really, no. We have to let him go. And so I grabbed my cell phone and I left, went to the attorney's office. They had already called my attorney and said they were charging me with espionage. I hadn't committed espionage. They knew I hadn't committed espionage. And in fact, since then, I'm fast forwarding a lot, 3 FBI agents have reached out to me, well, 2 to my attorneys. One reached out to me directly to apologize, saying that this came from the top. They thought it was a BS case. They were sorry they were involved, but there was nothing they could do. One guy reached out to me through eBay, of all things, like to try to cover up the trail. He's like, listen, I've been losing sleep over this for the last 13 years. I just wanted to tell you how sorry I am. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I hope you feel better. My whole life fell apart. But I'm glad you got that off your chest. So it became a matter of just survival after that. You know, you have to take it seriously. I was facing 45 years in prison. And then when the Justice Department made a request for a proffer meeting, the proffer meeting is they'll give you a little idea of what they have against you, and then they make an offer. You can take it or leave it. And they offered me 45 years. And I said, I'm not doing 45 minutes. I didn't do anything wrong. And this woman, she became Deputy Attorney General for the criminal division under Biden. She said, take this deal, Mr. Kiriakou, and you may live to meet your grandchildren.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it was... I went home that night, and I went home... I'm ashamed to even say it. That night, we put the kids to bed. And my wife and I were watching TV, and she said, come on, let's go to bed. I said, I can't sleep. There's no way I'm going to be able to sleep. And she said, no, come on, let's go to bed. She knew I was going to go down into the garage, turn the car on, and just lay across the back seat. And she said, no, come on. You need to try to get some sleep. And she saved me that night. But 45 years? And so they waited 10 months before they were even willing to engage in a conversation. And then they offered 10 years on a Monday. On Wednesday, they offered 8. And on Friday, they offered 5. My lead attorney was this legendary guy named Plato Kacharis. And Plato said, you know, I've been a criminal defense attorney in this city for 52 years. And this is the first time I've ever seen them come down in time. He said, usually they offer you 10, you say no, the next offer's 15, then the next offer's 20. I said, why are they coming down in time? He said, because they have a shit case and they know it's shit. And that's why we're going to go to trial and we're going to win this thing. I said, great. Well, they stayed at 5. And then they came back and they said, 3.5. And I said, I'm going to trial. I'm going to win this thing. Turned out, at the time, my best friend, his wife, had an uncle who was O.J. Simpson's jury consultant. And she called him for me and she said, hey, my friend John, he's in this situation. He's like, yeah, I read about this in the papers. He could use your help. He came up, didn't charge me a cent. He came up to Washington. We got him a security clearance, and which was another thing. We asked for a security clearance, and then the Justice Department called and said, the White House said Kiriaku's attorneys have enough security clearances. And I said, who at the White House said we have enough security clearances? Well, they had to tell us that it was John Brennan. No more attorneys for Kiriaku. Fisher cut bait. We're like, it's not up to John Brennan to decide if I have enough attorneys. Yeah, they have an unlimited number of attorneys, an unlimited budget. As it turned out, they spent $6 million to put me in prison. Was society really better off spending $6 million to put me in a low-security prison for 23 months? So, in the end, they said, best and final offer, 30 months, you do 23. Well, I was only the second American who had ever been charged with this crime of violating the Intelligence Identities Protection Act of 1982. The only other person that was charged with it was a woman named Sharon Scranage. She was a CIA secretary in Ghana in the 80s. And she was having an affair with a member of Ghana's intelligence service. And in the course of pillow talk, she revealed the names of all of the CIA officers in the station and the names of the sources they were running. And so the Ghanaians executed these guys. Oh, my God. She got 9 months in prison. 9 months. And they offered me 45 years for blowing the whistle on the torture program. So my wife and I stayed up all night, literally all night. And because Sharon Scranage had taken a plea, there was literally no case law. So what we found several things. We found several articles from the Harvard Law Review saying this law is unconstitutional. It violates the First Amendment, and it is prior restraint, right? Like it tells you in advance you can't say X, Y, and Z. But because there was no case law, you couldn't challenge it in court. And I said, well, can't we just appeal the charge and maybe, all the way up to the Supreme Court? And they said, yeah, we can do that post-conviction. And then you're going to be 45 years waiting and hoping that the Supreme Court does the right thing. We can't do that. So I decided by 6 a.m. I'm going to turn it down. I believed in my heart I hadn't done anything right. This was political. It was a vendetta by John Brennan. And Obama, by all accounts, I had friends, of course, who were still working at the agency and working at the CIA or at the White House, and they said that Obama had this Nixonian obsession with national security leaks, and it's because that came from Brennan. Obama was a senator for 2 years. He didn't have any experience doing anything, so he did what John Brennan told him to do. And Brennan said, "You got to crack down on these leaks. They do nothing but embarrass us." So I decided I'm going to turn it down. 6 a.m., I send an email to my attorneys. I had 11 attorneys. I was paying half of them, 5 of them. And then one of them writes back and says, put on a pot of coffee. We'll be at the house by 7. So they come to my house. The 4 main ones came to the house. Plato was the first one in. Now imagine this, 80-year-old, 6'2", 280-pound, mean old man. He comes in, and I said, "Good morning, Plato." And he said, "You stupid son of a bitch, take the deal." Like that. I said, "Take the deal? You're the one that told me not to take the deal. You're the one who told me we're going to go to trial and win this thing." And he says, "I only told you that to keep your spirits up." And then the second one, his partner, Bob Trout, a sweet gentleman, a Southern gentleman. He says, "If you were my own brother, I would beg you to take this deal." And I'm like, now what do I do? And then the third, who is the guy, Mark McDougall, one of the best attorneys I've ever encountered in my life. And the one that I liked and respected the most out of all of them. I liked all of them and respected all of them, but I felt a connection to this guy. He pulls me aside. He was a little bit angry, and he said, "You know what your problem is? Your problem is you think this is about justice, and it's not about justice. It's about mitigating damage. Take the deal." And I looked at my wife. She's just like, "What are we going to do?" So I took the deal. And I got 2.5 years in prison, and they made me do every single day of it.
From hard hats to steel-toed boots, Grainger's got your safety needs covered, literally. Shop Grainger's vast inventory of safety products. Call, click, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
She used to turn her nose up at everything, but now she runs to her bowl. Freshpet gives her what she loves and what she needs.
Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. You daily dive into the news. It is Monday, it's been a weekend, and there's a lot to talk about today, starting with this. It seems like all hell's breaking loose in Portland and Chicago, and that is very likely what Trump wants. Because even as both cities are fighting his efforts to send in the military, federal agents already in them, they've been accused of escalating the situation. They're seemingly trying to make them resemble the crime-ridden, war-ravaged wastelands that he's made them out to be. So in Portland, for example, what we've seen has been a few months of pretty small protests based around a building used by ICE in the southwest part of the city. But instead, you've got Trump claiming that what's been taking place is the destruction of the city. And with that, he's vowed to deploy troops to protect what he's called war-ravaged Portland, as well as ICE facilities under attack by, quote, Antifa and other domestic terrorists. In all this attention, it's reportedly spurred people from outside the city to come there, including right-wing counter-demonstrators. And in fact, this weekend, you had what appeared to be right-wing activists and influencers waving banners and cheering when federal agents shot tear gas, flashbangs, and pepper balls toward a crowd of more than 100 protesters gathered outside of the ICE building, all of which appear to be a significant escalation by ICE on the demonstrators without really anything spurring that on. Reports are showing that agents had previously kept their crowd dispersal efforts to the driveway and the street immediately outside of the building, but this time they extended their efforts by several blocks. Right, and as that was happening in one small corner of the city, you also had a legal battle playing out. And with that, on Saturday, you had a Trump-appointed judge issuing a temporary restraining order blocking the administration from sending in Oregon's National Guard, or with the judge pointing to what she called substantial evidence that the protests at the Portland ICE facility were not significantly violent or disruptive in the days or even weeks leading up to the president's directive. And with that, saying that she expected a trial court to agree with the state that the president had exceeded his constitutional authority. And while the administration, they quickly appealed, you also had Trump trying to get around her order by trying to send in 200 members of the California National Guard, who notably, one, had already been sent to Los Angeles, and two, a different federal judge already ruled last month that the troops sent to the LA area had been used illegally as a national police force. And actually, in response to Trump's effort to turn them on another state, you had California saying that it would be joining Oregon and suing Trump. But then also, you had the judge in the Portland case quickly calling an emergency hearing. And there, she revised her restraining order to cover the, quote, relocation, federalization, or deployment of members of the National Guard of any state or the District of Columbia in the state of Oregon. But they're also telling lawyers from the Justice Department that the president was in direct contravention of her order. But then despite all that, you also had Trump on Saturday ordering the activation of 300 National Guard troops to Chicago against the wishes of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. But then Pritzker last night claiming that the Guard in his state had been informed that Trump had ordered 400 members of the Texas National Guard to be in his state, as well as others, including Oregon, although that was before the judge's revised order. But in any case, the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago are now suing the Trump administration as well. And so, while we wait to see if they also get the National Guard deployment blocked, we've also seen outlets reporting that federal agents in Chicago have become increasingly aggressive. Right? And with that, you've got videos of agents deploying tear gas, pepper pepper balls and roughly throwing protesters to the ground going viral. And so on Friday, for example, you had federal agents reportedly throwing a tear gas canister at people on a busy street and then leaving the scene, with that also happening right in front of an elementary school. Also on Saturday, there was this highly contested thing that happened where you had an agent shooting and injuring a driver who Trump officials claimed rammed her car into a federal law enforcement vehicle. But then DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin describing the shooting incident as a response to an ambush that was carried out by domestic terrorists who also threw gas, rocks, and bottles at law enforcement. Also, law enforcement alleged that the driver had been armed with a semi-automatic weapon, but charging documents didn't mention a weapon. And so with that, you had Pritzker saying he wanted more information and didn't really trust the official account.
It's really hard to know exactly what the facts are, and they won't let us access the facts. They are just putting out their propaganda, and then we've got to later determine what actually happened.
Right, and then with that, you also had Pritzker saying that he had directed state agencies to investigate a recent raid at an apartment building on Chicago's South Side. And there, he was referring to reports that children had been zip-tied and held, and that elderly people had been thrown into a U-Haul for 3 hours. And Pritzker adding that he believed that some of the people detained were also U.S. citizens. And so, with all that, you had Pritzker making the argument that this chaos is what Trump wants.
They are the ones that are making it a war zone. They want mayhem on the ground. They want to create the war zone so that they can send in even more troops.
But ultimately, that's where we are with the situation right now. Obviously, we're going to have to wait to see what happens, both legally and on the ground. Especially because, in this part's my opinion, it does feel like Donald Trump is trying to set up the chaos for something to happen really big so it can kind of justify him to do something even bigger. Which also feels crazy to say at this point, because essentially it feels like Donald Trump is having Texas invade Illinois. But that said, that's the news, a little bit of my opinion. And of course, I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts, opinions, reactions, especially if you're in the states being affected right now. So the next up in the news, let's talk about the continued fallout that we're seeing from the Riyadh Comedy Festival. And while it's generally been kind of a PR nightmare, how different people are managing it is very interesting. Right, some are doubling down on their choice to perform, and others are actually apologizing for it. Right? I mean, you just had Jessica Kirsten telling The Hollywood Reporter that she's donating her paycheck from the event to a human rights group, saying, "My mission has always been to help people feel less alone. As an openly gay person, when I was asked to perform in Riyadh, I was surprised. I requested a guarantee that I could be openly out as a lesbian on stage and perform gay material. I hope that this could help LGBTQ+ people in Saudi Arabia feel seen and valued. I am grateful that I was able to do precisely that," but then adding at the same time, "I deeply regret participating under the auspices of the Saudi government." Where they're noting that the government continues to violate fundamental human rights, and so she decided to donate her money to, quote, "an organization that can help combat these severe issues." So there, she didn't say which one, but she then addressed her fans saying, "I will take full responsibility for my actions and dedicate myself to making amends so that my words and choices reflect the respect and care you deserve." And so what you saw was, among a number of the reactions here, you had some comics who have been critical of the festival now applauding her for donating the money that she earned. Because in addition to just everyday people and human rights organizations saying, why are you doing this? We're pointing to things like Jamal Khashoggi being murdered, the human rights abuses in the country, and arguing that these sorts of events, they whitewash those issues. So then also inside of the comedian community, you had many comedians slamming the event and their fellow stand-ups who participated, especially as you had people learning about the comics that had been offered the gig but then turned it down on principle. But how it played out with Kirsten is not how it played out for everyone. Right? Many of the stars who were involved are standing by their choice to perform, with, for example, Louis C.K. being the latest. Right? You had him recently telling Bill Maher that he was actually surprised by the backlash and adding, "When this came up, they said there's only 2 restrictions, their religion and their government. I don't have jokes about those 2 things. It used to be when I got offers from places like that, there would be a long list and I just say, no, I don't need that. But when I heard it's opening, I thought, that's awfully interesting. That just feels like a good opportunity, and I just feel like comedy is a great way to get in and start talking." And actually, Louis C.K. pointing to Jessica Kirsten when trying to demonstrate the positive things that could come from the festival, saying there's a woman who's a lesbian and Jewish who did a show over there and she got a standing ovation. So there's stuff going on that's unexpected in this stuff. Right? In his words, they're kind of similar to what we heard from Bill Burr last week on his podcast.
It was a mind-blowing experience. Definitely top 3 experiences I've ever had. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I could not have a better time doing shows for you guys, and it was great to experience that part of the world and to be a part of the first comedy festival over there in Saudi Arabia. I think it's going to lead to a lot of positive things. Dude, I literally think I'm gonna fucking land, and everybody's gonna be screaming.
It was such a fucking
They're gonna
delusional.
have, machetes and want to
I assumed everyone in Saudi Arabia had machetes and wanted to kill America.
Say goodbye to permitting hassles with my site plan.
It's literally just his own ignorance of
overnight.
how fucking Americanized Saudi Arabia is.
Incredibly affordable, with a track record of excellence and unwavering.
Americanized the way, like a perfect conservative utopia. Hate gays, minimal free speech.
And everybody's just regular. They're dressed different, but they're regular. Like people just shooting the shit. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. We're saying, hey, we're happy to be here. And we're driving around, and then I'm just like going like, I thought this place was gonna be like really tense. And I'm thinking like, is that a Starbucks? Next to a Pete's Coffee? Next to a Burger King? Next to a McDonald's? Next to a Pizza Hut? Next to a Dunkin' Donuts? Next to a Krispy Kreme? Next to a Cheesecake Factory? Next to a KFC? Next to a Chili's? They got a fucking Chili's over here? Then we go into the mall because I want to get my kids something. There was a Timberland store. I could have bought Timberlands like I was in Brooklyn, New York.
Right, and then, in addition to that, you had Dave Chappelle apparently using his set to not necessarily defend himself, but to take shots at free speech in America compared to speech in Saudi Arabia. Because according to the New York Times, he said, quote, right now in America, they say that if you talk about Charlie Kirk, that you'll get canceled. I don't know if that's true, but I'm gonna find out. It's easier to talk here than it is in America. With that, then, unsurprisingly being met with backlash. Or because repression of free speech, it's one of the most heavily talked about human rights abuses there. Right, Chappelle apparently gets angry or is annoyed by like people having an adverse reaction to his words, but in that country, like, they've arrested and executed journalists. People at times protesting you in the States because they didn't like what you did, but that attention also got you an 8-figure Netflix deal. That's not the same thing. How many people 6 feet under right now would love to have been canceled that way? But also with that, apparently that's not where he ended, because according to the Times, he also spoke about his critical stance on Israel and then said that he's afraid of coming back to the US because, quote, they're going to do something to me so that I can't say what I want to say. But hey, ultimately, that's where we are with this situation. And I guess where I want to leave it is, has any of this actually changed anything for you? Or like when this blew up, I've largely predicted that I think this is gonna leave most of the comedians unaffected. Their career is gonna go on, this is gonna be a blip. That said, it's greatly changed my opinion of many of them. I see them as kind of just stand for nothing whores. It's like a reminder to not put certain people on a pedestal because life has taught us numerous times not to do that and then we just forget. But yeah, I guess my question is, does this actually change stuff for you? Are you as likely or less likely to watch or listen to something from one of these people, to actually spend your dollars and go see them in person? And I ask because that's really the only thing that would make 90% of these people in perspective in the least bit. Yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. And then there's more we're gonna dive into in just 1 minute, but first let me say, listen up, you with that passion project, that side hustle, that list of business ideas just rotting in your notes app. I want you to make today the day you commit to making that thing real. Because I get it, I've procrastinated on a lot, including building my book club website. Like, it was forever, but I kid you not, the DeFranco Book Club, it went from someday to launched in under an hour with today's sponsor, Squarespace. Right, and it just couldn't be easier to build a site to start selling content, courses, physical or digital products. I mean, really whatever you've got in mind. So whether you want to just make and showcase stuff, or you want to charge a one-time fee, offer a subscription, both, done and done. Right, and they've got beautiful templates that look like you hired a designer, and their Fluid Engine editor, it lets you drag, drop, customize, no coding, no stress, no excuse. Oh, my team even uses Squarespace for our daily tip newsletter where tens of thousands of y'all every day get your PDS fix in your inbox. News polls, giveaways, PDS show notes, all run through Squarespace. And like clockwork, another daily tip issue went out today, and your project vision could be next. So hey, take that first step today with a free trial at squarespace.com/Phil, or just scan that QR code. Today is launch day. When it's ready to Maxwell, there'll be a very bad news from the Supreme Court. They just officially returned to the bench today to kick off what is going to be a very, very consequential term. One of the first things that they did was reject Maxwell's attempt to appeal her criminal conviction for sex trafficking girls with Jeffrey Epstein. Because back in April, you had Maxwell filing a petition asking the Supreme Court to overturn her conviction. And you had Maxwell arguing that she should have never been prosecuted because the infamous plea deal that Epstein agreed with Florida prosecutors back in 2008 to resolve allegations that he had molested dozens of girls. And specifically, under that deal, you had Epstein agreeing to plead guilty to state criminal charges of soliciting prostitution, and in exchange, prosecutors agreed to not bring more criminal charges against him related to the sex trafficking investigation. But also, very notably there, the prosecutors also agreed to not charge any of Epstein's co-conspirators. And so after Maxwell was convicted for her sex crimes in New York, she attempted to appeal the decision, arguing that Epstein's plea deal protected her from prosecution. But what you saw was an appeals court rejecting that claim, ruling that the authorities in New York were not bound to an agreement made by prosecutors in Florida. And so now, by declining to hear her case, the Supreme Court basically put the final nail in the coffin. Though you also had her lawyer issuing a statement saying that this fight isn't over, and adding, serious legal and factual issues remain, and we will continue to pursue every avenue available to ensure that justice is done. But with that said, it's also not clear what exactly they can do right now. You have experts saying that with the Supreme Court decision, it seems likely that Maxwell's only hope for an early release would actually be Trump granting her clemency. Which, on that note, I'll say, for his part, back in July, he said, he hadn't considered pardoning Maxwell, which you can believe him or not at that point, but he also added, I'm allowed to do it. But also say, for whatever it's worth, his administration did urge the Supreme Court not to take up Maxwell's appeal. Though, I will say, since we're on the topic of Epstein-related news, we need to then talk about House Speaker Mike Johnson. And that because Democrats are accusing him of refusing to swear in a new representative and denying hundreds of thousands of people a voice in Congress because he wants to continue to block the Epstein files from being released. Because as we've talked about many times before, Representatives Thomas, Massey, and Ro Khanna, they proposed a bill to release the Epstein files, but Johnson has refused to even bring it to the floor for a vote. And so instead, Massey and Khanna, they've been circling what's known as a discharge petition, or which would allow them to bypass leadership and force a floor vote as long as they can collect signatures from a majority of House members. And for a while now, they've been just one vote away because several prominent Republicans even joined their charge. And then it seemed like they got their final vote they needed, because Adelita Grijalva, she won a special election in Arizona, and she's a Democrat. And Grijalva vowed to sign the discharge petition once she got sworn in. But apparently that's easier said than done, because even though she was elected 2 weeks ago, Speaker Johnson has repeatedly refused to swear her in. Where the House was out of session all last week in an effort to pressure the Senate to pass the GOP's stopgap spending bill to keep the government open, which is an attempt that obviously failed. But also, before the government shut down, Johnson held what's called a pro forma session, which basically is a brief meeting for members of the House to discuss procedural matters without conducting legislative business. And so Grijalva, she went to Washington early last week in hopes of being sworn in during that session. Hopes, I should say, that are not unreasonable, because earlier this year, Johnson swore in 2 Republican representatives during another pro forma session just one day after they won special elections. But apparently, Johnson's only willing to do that for members of his own party, or people, I guess, who don't want to release the Epstein files, because he refused to do the same for Grijalva. With Johnson arguing that for some reason he doesn't want to take office until the House resumes its normal legislative business, with him telling CBS on Thursday, "The House is not on the floor doing business this week, but we will do it immediately early next week as soon as everyone returns to town. But we have to have everybody here and we'll swear her in." But then the next day, you had Johnson going back on that promise as well, but announcing that he won't actually be holding a session this week, instead designating a district work period, which allows Congress members to return to their home states from October 7th to the 13th. But then also the day after that, Johnson signaled that he would be delaying Grijalva's swearing in even more, telling reporters that the House won't come back into session until the shutdown ends and the government reopens. And of course, right now, we have no idea when that's actually going to happen. And so as a result, you have many, including many Democrats, condemning Johnson, arguing that he could call a pro forma session whenever he wants to make her election official, right? Noting that a shutdown doesn't actually prevent members from being sworn in. In fact, the entire House was sworn in when a new Congress started during the month-long shutdown that bled into January of 2019, which is then why you have tons of people accusing Johnson of intentionally refusing to swear Grijalva in so he can continue blocking the House from even voting on releasing the Epstein files. And that's also something that Grijalva herself says she believes is the only explanation.
At first I was trying not to be a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I
okay.
also have been the same. Like, maybe there's something I'm missing here.
Right, it doesn't have anything to do with these files, but that is literally the only thing I can point to. It's not like me getting sworn in is going to change, now the Democrats will be in the majority. I mean, there's certain things that are not going to change. Where Democrats will still be in the minority. That is literally the only thing that is different.
For now, we'll have to wait to see how this plays out, because while it's very important to look at the insane lengths that Johnson is going to just make sure this plays out a certain way, whether it is days or weeks from now, Grijalva will eventually be sworn in. When she does, that discharge petition will have enough signatures, and the House will be voting on releasing the Epstein files. It is just a matter of time. For the next up in the news, we should talk about how the beachfront house of a South Carolina judge who recently ruled against President Trump just went up in flames yesterday, and it's led to multiple injuries and accusations. And while the authorities, they're still investigating, the information is tight, here is what we do know for certain. At about 11:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, Judge Diane Goodstein was out walking her dogs when her home went up in flames. Reports have indicated that her 81-year-old husband, former Senator Arnold Goodstein, and another person had to escape via an upper floor window. Then he was reportedly airlifted to a hospital for injuries, and in total, 3 people were taken in. The actual cause of the fire right now, that's unknown, but whatever it was, it quickly burned the house down with aerial footage from the scene showing almost nothing left. And while officially, we do not know the cause, online, there was plenty of speculation, and many have concluded that this was definitely a politically motivated attack. Right in that, because recently, Judge Goodstein had ruled against the Trump administration in an immigration case. Because the DOJ, they recently wanted South Carolina to hand over personal data for about 3.3 million voters. Data that would reveal the names, addresses, birth dates, driver licenses, and the last 4 of social security numbers to the Trump administration. Right, and then they would use that information to cross-reference another database to try and see if any undocumented people were unlawfully allowed to cast votes in state elections. And following a ruling to block that move early last month, her family reportedly received multiple death threats. So also, I'll say, ultimately her ruling didn't matter as the state Supreme Court overturned her decision. As you can imagine, with how high political tensions are right now and the string of attacks and assassinations we've seen on political figures, to some, her house burning, it just seemed like too much of a coincidence. And to it a lot, including politicians speculating about the motivations behind the alleged arson. Right? I mean, you had New York Congressman Daniel Goldman writing on X yesterday. Trump, Stephen Miller, and MAGA World have been doxing and threatening judges who rule against Trump, including Judge Goodstein. And adding, today, someone committed arson on the judge's home, severely injuring her husband and son. Will Trump speak out against the extreme right that did this? However, at the time he wrote that, there wasn't a confirmed suspect or motive, just heavily assumed given the circumstances, which then resulted in Stephen Miller writing, "You are vile, deeply warped and vile. While the Trump administration has launched the first ever government-wide effort to combat and prosecute illegal doxing, sinister threats, and political violence, you continue to push despicable lies, demented smears, malicious defamation, and foment unrest. Despicable." With him then going on to try to flip the situation, saying, "Meanwhile, the Democrat AG nominee in Virginia is fantasizing about murdering his opponents, and a Biden federal judge is showing radical leniency to a monster who tried to assassinate a Supreme Court justice. While you post your libelous madness, we will keep focused on delivering public safety and fighting domestic terror." Then you had Goldman pushing back, saying that Miller didn't actually answer his question, and he once again asked, "Do you condemn all political violence or only that against your supporters?" Again, I want to stress, at least as of recording right now, there is no public confirmation about what happened. But also, one of the reasons that Miller might be so defensive about the accusation is because he just wrote a day before the fire. The issue before us now is very simple and clear. There is a large and growing movement of left-wing terrorism in this country. It is well organized and funded, and it is shielded by far-left Democrat judges, prosecutors, and attorneys general. The only remedy is to use legitimate state power to dismantle terrorism and terror networks. With many feeling like posts like that motivate people to act on behalf of the Trump administration. Right, arguing there that even though he was careful and he used legitimate state power in that statement, that when paired to the numerous other things he's been saying, it seems like it's something else. But again, right now there's a lot we don't know, and we'll have to wait to see. But then next up in the news, the United States has now killed at least 4 more people off of the coast of Venezuela that it's claimed without evidence were drug traffickers. And actually, according to Trump, strikes on Venezuelan territory might be next. Right, and all of this, it's coming as he's attempting to justify these and future attacks by arguing that the U.S. is literally at war with drug cartels that his team has designated
melting
terrorist
for fucking
organizations.
1,000
all
true
this has been
damage.
building toward this point for nearly the entirety of Trump's second term. It was back in February that Trump designated 8 Latin American criminal organizations as foreign terrorist organizations, 6 from Mexico, 1 from El Salvador, and 1 from Venezuela. Right, Tren de Aragua is a Venezuelan-based group which Trump has claimed is directed by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. And that's even though 1, U.S. intelligence assessment has said that that is not true, and 2, experts have also noted that the group is not deeply involved in narcotics trafficking. But regardless, we then saw Trump invoking wartime powers to deport migrants that the administration accused of being members of TDA without due process. Right, and there he argued that the group was engaged in irregular warfare against the U.S. at the direction of Maduro. Then, fast forward to July, and you have Trump signing a secret order directing the Pentagon to begin using military force against these recently designated terrorist organizations. And then in August, you start seeing a buildup of American firepower in the southern Caribbean Sea. And then in September, the U.S. launched at least 3 strikes against alleged drug traffickers in the region, killing at least 17 people, according to the administration. With it also being reported that at least one of those boats that the U.S. took out may have actually turned around before being hit. But again, regardless of that, you had the administration describing these strikes as an act of self-defense. Right, and their argument was basically that they had the legal authority to kill these people without due process because they were smuggling drugs into the U.S. for terrorist organizations, though again, they haven't provided any evidence for that. And all of that, it led to last week where you had Trump doubling down on that argument and even taking it a step further. Right, Trump sent a formal notice to Congress framing those strikes as part of an ongoing conflict rather than isolated acts of self-defense, claiming that the cartels kill tens of thousands of Americans each year and constitute an armed attack against U.S. citizens, and then adding that Trump thereby determined that members of drug cartels are unlawful combatants with whom the United States is engaged in non-international armed conflict. Right, and that's actually a key thing. In an armed conflict, as defined by international law at least, a country can lawfully kill enemy fighters when they pose no threat, detain them indefinitely without trials, and prosecute them in military courts. And, it's worth pointing out here that the term unlawful combatants, it's the same term that the George W. Bush administration used to describe Al-Qaeda and other terrorist networks, and that's also been a comparison that we've repeatedly seen made. Where you had Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth doing it over the weekend when asked about the legality of the strikes by Fox News.
Oh, we have every authorization needed. These are designated as foreign terrorist organizations. They're effectively designated just like Al-Qaeda, which if I saw Al-Qaeda in the conduct of doing something that was going to threaten and kill Americans, I had the right to do that in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you're in our hemisphere and you're in the Caribbean, if you're north of Venezuela and you want to traffic drugs to the United States, you are a legitimate target of the United States military. And in each one of these strikes, we know where they're coming from. We know who they work for. We know where they're going. We know what they're carrying. We know how many people are on that boat. And that's why these are legitimate, clean kills in pursuit of defending the homeland.
Except the this isn't the same, right? After 9/11, Congress explicitly authorized the use of military force against terrorist organizations specifically responsible for that attack. It hasn't authorized the use of military force to target drug cartels. And that's why you've got folks like one retired military lawyer who's the current director of the National Security Law Program at Georgetown University Law School explaining, declaring an organization as a foreign terrorist organization does not bring with it any additional authority to use force against those organizations. And with that, you also have the likes of John B. Bellinger III, a lawyer who served in the Bush administration, explaining, claiming that the U.S. is engaged in a non-international armed conflict with Venezuelan drug traffickers based on the facts provided so far is an inapt legal analogy that makes a mockery of accepted international law terms, and perhaps that's what the Trump administration intends. And that then brings us to Senator Jack Reed, the top Democrat of the Senate Armed Services Committee, slamming the administration for offering what he called no credible legal justification, evidence, or intelligence for the strikes, and adding, every American should be alarmed that the president believes he can wage secret wars against anyone he chooses. Congress alone has the constitutional power to decide when America
One of the
goes
best
to war.
points
The
I
president
heard
cannot
was,
launch military
why were there
campaigns
11
and invent
people
legal
in the
cover
first
after the
vote?
fact. But of course, words are words and actions are actions, and in the meantime, no one's stopping.
What,
Right,
what
on Friday,
drug
the
vote
same
would
day
send
Reed made that
11
statement,
people
Hegseth
with the
announcing
drugs?
the military had targeted another vessel
That's
off the
11
coast of
fucking
Venezuela, and
mules
he said that
that get
4
arrested
male
for one
narco
bus.
terrorists
Like,
had been killed,
what do you
bringing
need,
the
like
total
2-3
at least
people to run the
21.
boat?
Hegseth also claiming, again, without evidence, at least thus far, that the vessel was transporting substantial amounts of narcotics headed to America to poison
So
our
it's like
people.
best
And
case
that,
scenario,
our
it's fucking
intelligence, without a
migrants.
doubt, confirmed that this vessel was trafficking narcotics. The people on board were narco terrorists, and they were operating a known narco trafficking transit route. And saying these strikes will continue until the attacks on the American people are over. And you also had Trump posting the clip that day and adding, a boat loaded with enough drugs to kill 25 to 50,000 people was stopped early this morning off the coast of Venezuela from entering American territory. And that's actually a claim that he repeated on Sunday while delivering a speech for the Navy's 250th anniversary, with him then also saying that another strike had been carried out the previous night. Although I will say there, it's not clear if he was actually thinking about the one from Friday.
In recent weeks, the Navy has supported our mission to blow the cartel terrorists the hell out of the water. You see that? And you know, there are no boats in the water anymore. We can't find any. We're having a hard time finding them. Every one of those boats is responsible for the death of 25,000 American people and the destruction of families. So when you think of it that way, what we're doing is actually an act of kindness. But we did another one last night. Now we just can't find any. You know, it's the old story. We're so good at it that there are no boats. In fact, even fishing boats, nobody wants to go into the water anymore. Sorry to tell you that. But it's we're stopping drugs coming into America.
But then with all that, it's not clear at all right now how he figured that all those boats would be responsible for those deaths. But notably, you also had him repeating the claim that he's made before that more than 300,000 U.S. citizens die of drug overdoses annually. That doesn't appear to be right. The CDC reported only 87,000 overdose deaths for the year ending in September 2024, which I will say is still a shit ton of people, but obviously also way less than 300,000. And actually, it was almost 27% less than the previous year. Also, on the note of overdose deaths, I mean, that surge that we've seen in recent years, it's been driven by fentanyl, right? And drug trafficking experts say that that comes from Mexico. And even cocaine, that's mostly coming from Colombia and to a lesser extent, Peru and Bolivia. You know what? Some cocaine does leave South America through Venezuela. The country isn't a primary source of drugs coming to the U.S. I mean, at least according to our own DEA in a 2020 report. Right? So ultimately, besides the legal rationale for all this being widely criticized, the basic facts that he's trying to back it up with, they just aren't there. But still, you had Trump suggesting that this might just be the beginning.
Well, they're not coming in by sea anymore, so now we'll have to start looking about the land because they'll be forced to go by land. And let me tell you right now, that's not going to work out well for them either.
And actually with that, it was first reported a couple of weeks ago that U.S. military officials are drawing up options to target drug traffickers inside of Venezuela. You've got sources reportedly telling NBC News that strikes potentially begin in a matter of weeks. And so since there's a lot to suggest that this really isn't all about drugs, it leaves open the question, well, what is it really about? And well, there you had the Venezuelan president repeatedly alleging that this is all really aimed at driving him out of power. And in fact, several top officials in the Trump administration, they've reportedly been pushing for regime change. We're talking Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, as well as CIA Director John Ratcliffe and Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. Right, so understandably, while there's a lot of attention on what's happening in the United States domestically, and it makes sense that there is attention and it is important, this is also something we got to keep tabs on, one, because it matters generally, and two, it could spiral out of control. And that, actually, it brings us to the end of this video, though there's even more to watch just a click away. Right, you've got the first episode of my brand new podcast, Crashing Out, with myself and Alex Perlman, and also the next episode for that is out Wednesday, so definitely subscribe if you haven't already. There's also the latest episode of my interview podcast, In Good Faith, this one with Tim Miller. There's a new episode of that coming out this Thursday, definitely subscribe to that as well. And I've even got links in the description if you want to watch on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. But with that said, I'm gonna give you back your day. Thank you for watching. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
So, Ridge is already
Title's not clickbait. For the first time ever, I have been served some hefty legal paperwork. And it's not, there wasn't anything ceremonious about it. It's not like any of the, you know, crazy stories you might have heard about people being served where, like, someone will go incognito like a secret agent, like with the disguise where they have some kind of silicone mask of your mother's face on it, so you open the door and then bang, you get the paperwork served to you or anything. It was nothing like that. Just a normal, unassuming, albeit very large envelope in the mail. Now, it's not a full-blown lawsuit or anything at the moment. It is some demands because there are 2 YouTubers that believe I have stepped on their tootsies and infringed on their copyright. They are Reed Timmer and Brad Arnold. Now, I initially reached out to both of them because the language in this paperwork is very fishy. I'll get into that more in a moment, but I wanted to talk directly with them to see if this is like a scam or something. Like, I wanted to make sure this was like a legitimate thing before I got my lawyers on this. They haven't responded, so I'm guessing this is probably legitimate. Like, this is probably something they are actually trying to go through with. Though I do know that there are a lot of law firms now that are trying to encroach in the space to convince YouTubers to go through copyright law to try and make money. That is something that a bunch of firms have reached out to Matt about to do on my behalf, which is unhinged why any firm would think I would ever do something like that, but it is somewhat normal in the space right now. So I think there's a chance that maybe that's what's happening here and they don't know that, but since they didn't respond, I can't say for sure. So as of now, it feels legitimate, so I will be getting my lawyers on this, obviously, to be going through the next steps of this now most likely very long procedure. But let's go ahead and talk about what the claim is. So last year, during Hurricane Milton, I did a stream in the middle of Hurricane Milton. I'm in Tampa, and Hurricane Milton came through to spread our cheeks. I was streaming during it. While streaming, I would check like weather updates or like some streams to see the progress of Milton and what's going on in the area. Now, I think all of you know this, I don't do React content anymore, so if there's ever any like content or footage on my stream, it's very brief, and the only things I usually watch are game trailers, movie trailers, or news footage, like news broadcast, publicly available news. So for the hurricane, I thought it would be a-okay to show very brief clips of what was happening with Milton so I can stay up to date, as well as, I guess, share with the audience who was asking, like, what's going on, are you safe, what's happening? And one of the streams I pulled up was a Ryan Hall Y'all stream where he was showing a bunch of footage of Hurricane Milton, and one of the footage snippets, like one of the contributors, was Brad Arnold. You can see his footage there as one of the, you know, on the scene, boots on the ground, you know, reporters there. And I had that section there, that footage that included Brad Arnold's work there on my stream for less than 30 seconds. Unless I missed another instance of it somewhere, it was present for less than 30 seconds. Though I did pause at one point, so if you count the pausing with the image of the footage there, it's a little longer, but I can't imagine a still image counts. If it does, then no bussy is safe, because that would just be fully Pandora's box wide open here. Even this video would be in jeopardy then, because I did just show you a screenshot of that stream that had a still image from Brad Arnold's on the scene work. But it's just a picture, it's not moving or anything, and it's like, I have it here for 5 seconds. I guess we'll see. I think that would be really scary if that is now completely prohibitive and a potential copyright infringement. That would be very, very scary. Anyway, though, that's the extent of Brad Arnold's footage that entered into the Thunderdome of my hour-and-a-half long Hurricane Milton stream. So it was less than 30 seconds. I don't think that's an extensive period of time there, but I'll go ahead and let bygones be bygones on that and move on to Reed Timmer. Reed Timmer and Brad Arnold are both being represented by this firm, so it's a tag team here, a dynamic duo looking to double fist my butthole. Reed Timmer was on my stream for, I wrote these down because it was a couple times. 28 seconds the first time, where I showed some of Reed Timmer's, once again, on the scene footage. It was 28 seconds to see what was going on. And then once I showed that, Reed Timmer's fans came in my chat telling me that I should really check out his tank. He built like this really cool tank, and they really wanted me to see Reed Timmer's tank. So I went to his video that showed his tank, and I had that on screen in total for 1 minute and 10 seconds. I then skipped towards like more of the middle of the video to see the rockets, because everyone wanted me to see like the rockets he has on the tank. So I went there, and that was on screen for 25 seconds total. And then I just paused it, and I just had it as a still image there, so it was there for a bit longer as a still image, not the video playing or anything like that. So in total, less than 2 minutes was Reed Timmer's footage across 2 pieces of his content, one being a live stream and then the other being the tank that his fans really came in and wanted me to see. Maybe that was an elaborate ruse, a big bait from the Reed Timmer community to get me in hot water with him, and if this was a Galaxy Brain chess maneuver, impressive work. I hadn't seen that line before. The Scotch Open got me good there. Like, it worked. The bait was successful. Because now Reed Timmer is here in the squared circle with a copyright notice. And now let's talk about the actual paperwork here. As I said, the language feels very fishy to me. And the lawyer that I had glance over it to take a peek also found it to be really, really weird. One of the first things that jumped out was they claim that I've used it in multiple instances, in multiple locations. They say that I unlicensed distributed their work in the following locations, and then it gives 2 links to a YouTube video. I said a YouTube video because they only have 1 YouTube video there. They list it twice. They do the same link twice, but then imply that I've done it multiple times in multiple locations. So that's already weird. It's the Hurricane Milton stream. I am not familiar with Brad Arnold's work, nor Reed Timmer's. That was the only time I'd ever even heard of their names, was during the Hurricane Milton stream I did from, well, Reed Timmer's community, and then also just from trying to stay knowledgeable on what the fuck is happening with the natural disaster that's hitting my home. Like, that's the only time I was ever even heard of their names before, and what I put on stream of theirs was there for such a small amount of time, I thought there'd be no issue there at all. The paperwork goes on to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the exact amount, but it goes on to say that they are potentially entitled to many tens of thousands of dollars per infraction. It makes a mention of damages that could get up to 6 figures, about me potentially posting their content on all of my other socials and my other websites, which is obviously not anything that happened. It was only during that stream for like sub 2 minutes. At least from what I can tell on the stream. Maybe I missed a couple instances, but it's not a long period of time at all. But it's saying, or rather implying, that I may have been blasting it all over the place, thus they would be entitled to more money. And then it says things like, in order to comply, I would need to explain where and how I obtained their client's work to copy it. As if I had some kind of Ocean's 11 style heist where I broke into Fort Knox to steal their copyrighted footage for myself, like I took a fucking Dragon Ball or something. Which is really weird, because what do you mean, how did I find this? Those were 2 absolutely massive streams during Hurricane Milton that were there to try and keep people informed on what was happening with Hurricane Milton. They had like fucking 100,000 viewers, and like they were huge, huge streams. So I saw those streams, and I tuned in to see what was happening with Hurricane Milton for my own safety and to stay up to date on the progress of the hurricane. And the second part of that is absolutely mind-boggling about like where and how I found it and copied it. I didn't fucking copy it, I looked at it. I had my peepers on it very briefly. I didn't steal their work, I like, you know, fucking download it to a floppy disk, you know, don't copy that floppy type shit. Like I didn't copy anything. I looked at their stream for a very, very, very brief period of time during a hurricane that was hitting my house, just to see what was going on and stay knowledgeable. Also, to show chat, stream what was going on in the area. I'm not exactly equipped to show it myself by just taking this camera and going outside during it. I'd get blown away. I'm fucking 5'6". That shit would ragdoll me. I don't have all the gadgetry and doodads to show it. So I looked for a very small handful of seconds at the on-the-scene storm chasers and reporters just to stay up to date. I didn't copy their work, and I wasn't trying to steal their work and pretend like it was mine or make money off of their work. It is an hour-and-a-half stream during Hurricane Milton, and their footage is present for less than 2 minutes at the end of the stream, by the way. Like, Reed Timmer's section there is literally right before I went offline, before my power got knocked out briefly. Or, I don't remember if my power got knocked out in that stream. It happened a couple times. I'm pretty sure it got knocked out in that one. I don't even remember now. But, like, it's at the end of the stream. It's... I feel like it is very odd if this is something Reed Timmer and Brad Arnold are legitimately pursuing. Or maybe this is all a huge misunderstanding, and they don't even know that I got served these papers. I'm hoping that's the case. I have no ill will towards Brad Arnold or Reed Timmer, one way or the other, I suppose. If they really feel like I have done something wrong with that, then they're fully within their right to serve me these precious little papers here that I'm patting real nicely. That it is what it is. I wanted to keep you all in the loop here because this, I'm not gonna lie, was extremely annoying. If you follow Moist Critical Gaming, you probably will have seen the League video I posted the other day where I was fuming. Well, it's because I got served those papers and I was talking to lawyers about it. So it was an extremely frustrating day. Anyway, wanted to just keep you all in the loop here on what's going on. That's really about it. See ya.
Want to take your hair from thinning to thriving? Just take the free assessment from Hims Hair Loss, prescribed by a licensed provider. No insurance and no in-person visits. Just finasteride and minoxidil. Choose through Hims with real results. Start today.
With Bittrex 24 CRM, you don't necessarily have to overcome obstacles and hurdles. You might as well take a shortcut and get to the finish line faster. Sign up now for Bittrex 24 CRM. One flat price for your entire team.
I recognize this isn't a new phenomenon with grown adults stealing items from children at sporting events, but I would make the argument that it's becoming more and more common now. Maybe all those 5G towers really did take a toll on some people's brains here, because it is crazy how often I am seeing footage of these grown-ass adults just stealing candy from babies, like literally at these sporting events. I just learned about another one from last week at a Chiefs game where Patrick Mahomes was giving his headband to a 10-year-old who was actually there celebrating his birthday, apparently. And as Patrick Mahomes is giving the headband to the kid, this woman comes over, snatches it out of his hands, and then runs away. Gets called out on it, and then makes the dumbest fucking TikTok video about it I've ever seen. But first, let me show you the evidence here that she stole it. I think that's pretty obvious. There's other angles that show it even more clearly. I don't think it's necessary. I think that's pretty cut and dry there. But she then made a TikTok video after people were giving her shit for it.
To make something straight, I did not steal a headband from a little kid.
Yes, an excellent job cropping this photo to try and prove your innocence here. This would fool even the most seasoned of forensic experts, I would say. Irrefutable proof that she was the intended target, which you can tell because she's nowhere to be seen. In her own evidence here, you can see that she is reaching out in front of the child to take it from him. Like, come on, this is unreal. Also, she was dressed in Giants accoutrements. She was a Giants fan. I don't think Patrick Mahomes was intending to give you the headband. He didn't even register your presence there. This is so ridiculous. Oh my god, my voice is cracking. It's so absurd.
I just need to explain myself because everyone's having heart failure over this. You just need to understand, I'm at a football game. Last 2 minutes of the game, I allowed many people to come and sit down next to me or stand up or whatever you want to say. But I paid for my damn tickets. I paid. Well, Michael paid. All the same money. We paid for our tickets. It was 2 rows back. I went all the way in the front. People were coming from all over, probably the nosebleeds.
This is a masterclass in how to become even more unlikable in a situation I thought it was impossible to be more hated. People already don't like her because she clearly steals from a child, and now in her response she gives people even more things to dislike her for. She's talking about how she allowed people into her area after she paid for those tickets to be there. Well, Michael paid, but it's her money too, obviously. In fact, it's mostly her money, really, I would argue. Lady, the game is over. That is now moot. You can go wherever you want in that area. You don't own it. But she's talking about it as if it's her fucking stadium. And being the benevolent saint she is, the angel, she allowed them with her grace to be in this vicinity with her. That's crazy. That is actually crazy, the delusion. And she even says she was 2 rows back, so she also went up. But then she's like, talking about how, like, these people came from everywhere. Probably the fucking nosebleeds or something. Those plebeians, these heathens, invaded my space.
I don't know if that kid was from the nosebleeds. I don't know if those were his seats or whatever. But people were saying, could we come and sit over there, stand over there? I was saying, yeah, sure, whatever. Last 2 minutes of the game, they were all KC fans because the Giants lost, so all the Giants fans left. But I wanted to stay there and see if anyone's going to come down. Michael stood 2 rows behind me. Couldn't have even seen me because so many people were around standing up.
Who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter here in what happened. The game was over. You can now move around freely. If you were letting people in around you, that's so nice. What a superstar you are. Oh my goodness, that's the sweetest thing I've ever heard. But it also has nothing to do with you stealing the headband intended for a 10-year-old.
At the ending of the game, the KC players was coming. Not gonna lie, what's his face? McDuff, I think his name is.
Doesn't even fucking know.
Right to me to give me his gloves. But I was looking behind him and was looking at Mahomes, and I was screaming, Mahomes, Mahomes. He got mad. He like sort of got upset. Looked at me and said, I'm not Mahomes. So he gave the gloves to the next door little girl next to me. She started crying. I felt bad for her and I was rubbing her back. I said, are you okay? Don't worry about it, baby girl. They're just people. Don't cry.
I don't even know what that means. What kind of yappuccino are you serving up here? What the fuck? Jiminy Christmas? What? What the hell is even that? What are you even... Huh? What are you blabbering about? So, there are pieces to this puzzle I don't think are going to fit together. Like, following the breadcrumbs that she's sprinkling out here. She's farting out a poop that I just don't understand. So she's saying she was screaming, Mahomes, Mahomes. Turns out it wasn't Mahomes, it was McDuff. I think she means McDuffie, would be my guess. She can't even bother to get the player's name right. Also, side note, she's a Giants fan. Why does she even want Chiefs gear? I imagine she just wants to resell it. That'd be my hunch. But anyway, so apparently McDuffie got upset, like, I'm not Mahomes, and then gave his gloves to a little girl next to her who started crying. So then she started to console the little girl, reassuring her that it's okay. They're just people. Yes, of course. Now it's all starting to make sense. A confounding mystery, but it's becoming more and more clear. It's coming into focus now that I say it out loud. This must be how it feels to, like, do whippets. Like, listening to her speak actually makes me stupider.
I am not a thief. That little boy, when Mahomes came, if you look at the video, both of our hands was on it. He was right to the left of me. I didn't look in Mahomes' eyes to see where is he looking. I just seen he's handing out something. I put my hand, both of our hands was on it. I took it.
Yeah, but you definitely knew. The kid even said the lady just stole that from me. Like, you definitely did know. You reached out to put your hand on it. He didn't just, like, set it in both of your hands and say, like, good luck. It wasn't like the Dark Knight with the Joker doing an initiation. Like, he was clearly giving it to the kid. You reached out to grab it and put your hands on it and then take it from the kid. Like, that is clear in the video that you keep urging people to watch.
Life is more legal than you think, and LegalZoom is here to help. Whether it's registering a business, starting a will or trust, or staying on top of your business licenses. When you need a legal hand, turn to LegalZoom.
We got here first. We did it. Nah, she's right there. Doesn't kill you just isn't finished yet. You wake up, good morning.
If he was 20 years old, would it have mattered? If he was a 20-year-old man and both of our hands was on it, and if he would have took it away from me, would have been like, oh, you should have gave it to the woman. So if it was a guy and I'm a girl, then he should have gave it to the girl. But because he's a 10-year-old little boy or 8-year-old or whatever, how old he is, I should have gave it to him. But I didn't even know.
Good news, I just went and bludgeoned myself with a sledgehammer and I understand her perfectly now. This is a bulletproof defense. She's got us all in a checkmate. So, I think what she's trying to say here, very convoluted, is that if it was a 20-year-old man that she stole it from, would people still be upset? And the answer is, people would still think you're an asshole. And then she flips it saying, what if a guy took it from me? Would anyone care? And in that case, yeah, people would
I
think
heard Taylor
he's an
Swift's
asshole.
new
I'm
album
pretty
is
sure
so
this is
bad.
the first video I've ever made with Taylor
She released an apology for like
and that's
a
because I just don't really have any strong feelings
like
on
a haters
her or
gonna
her
hate
music.
video.
I don't know a
or
whole lot about
post.
her, like, in her personal life or anything other than, like, all the breakups and stuff, but that's just not something I tune into super deeply. All I know is she's got some songs in her catalog I like to wiggle my finger to occasionally. Like, I don't dislike her music. I don't hate the songs that she's put out. There are a few boner jams in there. But the reason I'm talking about her today is because she has a new album that just came out, which I didn't even know was around the corner. But something is a bit awry. There's a disturbance out there because for the first time ever, I'm pretty sure, people are saying it's not good. Even her most loyal of fans are criticizing it. A feat I didn't even think was possible. It defies our very fundamental understanding of science. The Swifties vocally expressing disappointment, and not only in the album, but in the way in which Taylor Swift has gone about it. There is a lot of greed at play here that I would have never even imagined as like a money-making strategy. It's so fucking scummy. But Swifties have been well known to support any and everything Taylor Swift does at basically any price point imaginable. You could ask the moon, and they would happily fork over every single doubloon in their piggy bank for it. They would pay $5,000 to be in the same room that Taylor Swift farted in 5 years ago, and they would pay that with a big smile on their face, and go online to rave about the incredible experience being near like a smidgen of ass molecule that Taylor Swift shared the same air as this one room one time. Like, and yet they are talking about how disappointing this is from Taylor. That's crazy to me. That has to be like an indicator for an impending apocalypse. Like, I bet if you correlate this with the Mayan calendar, we're going to find evidence to the end times right around the corner. It is shocking, to say the least. And since I brought up the end times, I want to tell you that the end of bad hygiene is here, thanks to our soap Cheeky. We've got a new scent available now. It's the Sunday Scaries. It's our vanilla scent, which is a scent that has been requested highly for like the last year, and it's finally here. So you can go to usecheeky.com and get yourself the best soap ever created. So naturally, before getting into like the greedy monetization model for this album, Life of a Showgirl, I'll go ahead and give you my opinion on the album, because I decided to take a little listen.
Choose from a wide range of sizes, styles, and finishes to match your office perfectly. Built for comfort and functionality, these desks help you work smarter. Upgrade your workspace today at MedicineLiquidators.com.
Now words.
I didn't hate it. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what all the hoopla is about. Like, it seems like just a very normal Taylor Swift album. Admittedly, there's nothing on there that jumped out at me
I'm
as
sure
a
I'm just getting
classic
the
that's going to
lowlights,
be
but
talked
holy
about as one
fuck,
of her finest pieces,
what I've heard is
one of her top
not
tracks
good.
or anything. But it wasn't nails on a chalkboard
Probably made
or
$1 trillion
anything. It didn't
off
feel
of
like
it.
it was just lazy throwaway garbage. Like, I didn't feel like I was listening to "You'll Cowards Don't Even Smoke Crack" or something. Like, it was just very simple. Not to throw shade at "You'll Cowards Don't Even Smoke Crack," of course, but the point is, it just felt like a really normal Taylor Swift album. It wasn't extraordinary, but I don't think it was nearly as bad as I'm hearing a lot of people say. The only track on here that actually did raise my eyebrow was "Wood," which is a song about Travis Kelce's wiener. It's about a little more than that, but that's kind of like the focus, is Travis Kelce's meat. Kind of lyrics that just make you go, ooh, instead of have you snapping your fingers. Forgive me, it sounds cocky, he amatized me. I actually had to look up what that was. It's apparently dickmatized instead of hypnotized, where you get fucked so good that you get hypnotized, apparently. At least according to fan interpretations of that line. There's a lot of layers to this onion, of course. It's very deep songwriting. And opened my eyes, redwood tree, it ain't hard to see, his love was the key that opened my thighs. Girls, I don't need to catch the bouquet to know a hard rock is on the way. Oh. Like, when I heard that for the first time, it brought out the same feeling as the first time I heard Riley Reid freestyle rap. It was just, it was visceral. These lyrics really do feel like something I myself would write as a joke for one of our songs, The Gentle Men. And who knows, maybe Taylor Swift is a fan of The Gentle Men and was inspired by our songwriting styles. Because, like, I could see myself writing some shit like that for a goofy track. You know, penis appointment, you know I'm on time. He's dunking his balls like MJ in his prime. Like, it really does sound like something I would have cooked up for Sillies. But, I don't know, the rest of the song, it kind of plays it pretty straight, like pretty serious. And it's just, I don't know. That, out of all the songs on the album, that's the only one where I was like, oh. But anyway, enough about the album itself. I think it is just like a very normal, generic Taylor Swift album. Do I think it's anything special? No. Do I think it's anything abhorrent and as awful as everyone else seems to think it is? Also no. But I did see a banger tweet that a buddy of mine sent me that I guess kind of sums it up nicely. I said Taylor Swift's new album sucks and I didn't even get a single death threat from a Swiftie. That's how bad it is.
Your brand is special, and so is what you do. We are Any Promo, and we help companies and brands just like yours with promotional products and custom giveaways. We know how to help you stand out from the crowd. With the largest selection of promotional products, over 30,000 positive reviews, and rock-bottom prices, you can trust us with your next event. So if you're looking to grow your brand, make sales, say thank you, or celebrate an occasion, let Any Promo...
For those that don't know, since basically the beginning of Taylor Swift's career, anyone that speaks out saying, like, I didn't really like that, they get dogpiled by Swifties with death threats, oftentimes racism. Like, the Swiftie online reputation has been pretty scary for a while, actually. And of course, it's not all Swifties, obviously, but it's enough to be kind of like a common thought, a stereotype for Swifties that has been around for a while. Where if you say you don't like something about Taylor Swift or her album, get ready for some of the most colorful insults you'll ever read and a lot of death threats. So now, with the actual album itself out of the way, let's talk about how she monetized it, how she tried to squeeze more money from all of her fans, because it is egregious. I think this is probably why there are so few people coming to her defense here, because this is kind of indefensible. This is an article from a site called Defector that kind of broke it all down and gave like their review of it and talking about the monetization here and how greedy it is. So, upon announcing the album, Swift put up a vinyl for pre-order on her site, and then another, and then another. Before the album was even released, she had promoted and sold on her site 8 exclusive vinyl variants in different colors with different names, and 8 CDs and 1 sweater which comes with a CD. The vinyls cost $34, the CDs cost $20, the sweater CD cost $70, and one of those was a Target exclusive edition.
Jesus,
Don't forget
70.
Target. The marketing scheme for each of these releases, which came one after another, was scarcity. They will sell out, you will never have another opportunity, hurry, show your love and devotion. And unsurprisingly, it was a very successful business model. She's apparently sold 2.7 million copies of the album in physical and digital. When she announced it on the New Heights podcast, she promised this album wouldn't have any bonus tracks. Historically, Swift has sold her fans the album and then asked them to buy it again to access extra songs. The Life of a Showgirl, she promised, was fully complete, but then on Saturday night, another countdown appeared on her website, and at the end of it, she announced 4 additional CDs of the same album that fans could buy. These versions cost $8 a piece, and each includes 2 exclusive acoustic versions of songs on the album. That means that in addition to the songs on the album, Swift also recorded 8 acoustic versions, but you can only hear them if you purchase each of the 4 CDs. You have to collect this shit like pieces of Exodia here to get the whole experience. It goes on to say she didn't lie technically. There are no new songs on the CDs, just an opportunity for her to make even more money. So the songs aren't new, but they're a different recording of the same song a different way. There's really no way of justifying that. The whole purpose is just to squeeze more money out of the audience because she knows they are going to lap it up 100%, and they are. Like, it is still making tons of money, even though it's not being received overly positive. Another thing they're putting her feet to the fire for is apparently using AI in this new album rollout. So it's pretty clear that this is big time money making mode here. This isn't really about the artistry of her craft or anything. It does seem like the whole goal here is to try and squeeze as much out of this album as she possibly can, with so many like additions and shit, even cutting corners on to use AI. Like, she has unfathomable wealth. There is just no excuse for not just hiring a real person, a real artist for that. the only
It's
reason
honestly
she'd
probably
use AI is to
subcontractors.
save money, which is pretty crazy considering she's a fucking billionaire. Like, how are you gonna cheap out on this? It's so wacky to me. So it's hard to disagree with people expressing their sentiment that Taylor Swift is just selling out and is looking to just make as much money off this album as she can possibly squeeze without really caring about the art or the community that she's built. Just kind of throwing Swifties into the mud and just treating them like a useful piggy bank she can tap into whenever she wants for delivering very little to them. Like I said, it's hard to disagree
One
with
more
that because
E.
why the fuck are there so many versions of this? Why are you using AI? Like, there are just so many things that are clearly just here because it's greedy. And I'm actually pleasantly surprised to see even the most loyal of Swifties calling it out, saying, like, this is unacceptable. This is really disappointing from Taylor. I thought she had reached this point where she was literally infallible in some people's eyes. So it's good to see
Damn.
that there are things people won't stomach when
I
it
can
comes
add
to
that if I was,
her
like,
greed with
2
this album.
pixels to the left.
I think that's good. So hopefully there'll be a course correction here from her team, like with the way this has been handled. I don't know, maybe. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to yap about it a little bit because this was pretty shocking to see that her album and her business acumen here being criticized by Swifties. So anyway, that's really about it. So yeah.
More boxes, more options. Grainger has over 1,700 box types in stock and ready to help you pack, store, and ship everything. And you can count on Grainger to deliver your boxes fast. Count on Grainger for boxes. Call or click Grainger.com/boxes today.
You know what's in your cheap protein powder? Well, here to tell us is all-natural fitness athlete Paul Sklar.
All right, let's see what we've got. Sucralose, artificial flavors, soy lecithin, ion charged protein blend. That's not good. Aspartame, soluble corn fiber. That's.
We're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly.
So let's get it clear right now. Israel should get the fuck out of Gaza.
Well, the United States didn't get the F out of Japan.
Israel has done 70 October 7ths already. 70!
Trump is a real estate guy. He's looking at Gaza and he's saying, I see a bunch of rubble. Why don't we have nice buildings and clean streets?
You've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. This certainly was a surprise to me.
It was a surprise for me too, my husband. He just wanted to know how much money it is. Palestinians are an invention.
Just to be clear, you would like all of the land from the river to the sea.
I want all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile. What do you mean?
This is one of the more ludicrous pitches for a Nobel Peace Prize I think I've ever heard in my life.
The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
Was what happened on October the 7th, 2 years ago, an act of resistance?
Palestinians rose up and resisted Israeli oppression, yeah.
This is my problem. It wasn't an act of resistance. It was an act of despicable terrorism.
No, I'm not going to call it an act of terrorism.
There is nothing pro-Palestinian about Hamas as an organization, and they are an organization that needs to be destroyed for the well-being of Israelis and Palestinians.
For the first time in more than 2 years, Palestinians in Gaza and the hostage families in Israel are celebrating, albeit cautiously. The war may finally be over. US President Donald Trump made the announcement that both Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of a peace deal. This is how he got the historic news.
Come on up here, Mark. Anything we should know about the Middle East?
That's what we're hoping to talk to you about here, Mr. President.
Well, they're smart, but they're not smart enough. Oh, my microphone's broken. They're smart, but they're not smart enough. They have been covered by these liberal cities for so many years. And that's why we're all working with Treasury, with all these different departments, to find the criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I'm just giving. Yeah, I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly.
An incredible moment. Of course, there's every reason to be unsure about whether this will last. Many of the crucial details remain unclear. But the most important detail is that a ceasefire will begin immediately. Aid will move in. Israeli troops will move out. And all of the remaining Israeli hostages will finally be allowed to go home. The president spoke to their ecstatic families by phone last night.
President Trump, you have the best crowd in the world. What do you guys have to say to President Trump?
Hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
All? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, as part of the deal, Israel is expected to release more than 1,700 Gazans detained since October the 7th. The grim truth is that they will be returning to a decimated land, blighted by unspeakable destruction, grief and uncertainty. There are major unanswered questions about the extent of Hamas disarmament, about who governs and rebuilds Gaza, and about who makes sure this deal, like others before it, doesn't simply fall apart. But for now, it's a moment in history to savour the did for the 7th. Cheng, I've not talked to you since this peace plan was presented. You know, I read it in detail, and I found myself nodding at a lot of it. It seems to me to be the most likely framework to get this war over.
Yeah. So my sense of it is that Trump is actually trying to get the peace. Obviously, he's massively biased towards Israel, and this deal is biased towards Israel, but I would take it. Now I'm not Hamas, so it's easy for me to say I want the hostages home. I wanted the hostages home from day one. In the deal, the hostages...
Looking for the perfect desk to elevate your workspace? Choose from a wide range of sizes, styles, and...
Have you ever looked at a map of Australia and thought, nice shape, in fact it is a shape, but then immediately after that also thought, it just needs one thing. Ah, perfect. Then this is the video for you. This is your last chance ever to get tickets to my show about UFOs, where you will hear the truth. Selling fast. There's very few tickets left for that. And then Melbourne, go get your tickets for that as well. Links below. This video isn't about reality. It's about something way less gay. Fantasy. But not like the type of fantasy neckbeards like to retreat to, where they're a goblin wench. My special power is the ability to make eye contact in social situations. This is the fantasy of that other type of neckbeards, shed-beards, whose fantasy is cars. Their version of escaping to some land called EverQuesting Gale is...
Yeah, mate, Australians always complaining, oh, there's not enough water. Mate, just make a big fucking lake, it'll be beautiful. Put some yabbies in there. Some... I don't know what else lives in a lake. Bunyips, aren't those c***s endangered?
Boys, let me know in the comments, but I actually think that this is one of those Roman Empire things that most Aussie men have thought about. Get the revive. Had an inland sea. I'm largely basing this theory off of some of the most rock-solid data there is on what the average male thinks. Big footy forum posts. And I'll tell you this, you're not completely crazy for thinking that Australia should have an inland sea. You're just very, very stupid. After all, it did happen. We had one about 100 million years ago during the early Cretaceous period called the Eromanga Sea. Yes, that is the real name. There you go, neckbeards. I knew you'd like this video. And here it was. I really got to stop spending thousands of dollars to get 2 seconds of footage. It covered most of inland Queensland, parts of northern New South Wales and South Australia. That's 100 million years BK, before Whatta. That's right. It even predated Lebanese migration to Australia. This is earlier than the Whatta dynasty. Although I assume Bob's evolutionary ancestors were probably living it up as mermaids in that lake even back then, and much like his grandfather, migrated to Australia. Because they weren't spending any more time in it when every 3 months another Lebanese mermaid gets ripped apart by a Dinosuchus. Now, in case you're wondering why we don't have that lake now, if we look at a modern map of Australia and... No, that's not a modern map. I must have mixed my files up. No, just kidding. I know it's not a modern map of Australia, guys. In fact, it was a map from the 1820s, before Europeans had explored much of inland Australia. They had managed to discover most of Australia's major rivers like the Darling, the Macquarie, the Murray, the Murrumbidgee rivers. I don't know if they discovered Joan rivers. I think the Americans discovered that one. It was the same era though. But they noticed that they all flowed westward away from the ocean. Thanks to guys like Matthew Flinders who'd already sailed around Australia mapping its coastline, they also knew that there weren't any massive river deltas anywhere that usually occur when big rivers meet the sea, like the Nile or the Ganges. Oh, sorry, that's not the Ganges, that's a sewer. Ah, well, same shit. Anyway, logically, the only plausible answer to where the water could be going was a yet undiscovered inland sea, which sadly, even in our time,
I thought I was banning, dude. I was
The only problem with the
distracted.
Australian inland sea theory was that discovering this inland sea would involve going on a
Bust out the
really
Mundo
long
tech.
trek through largely unknown land, a really long way away from any kind of help or assistance. To give you an idea, South Australia hadn't even been founded at this point, and even today, would you be relying on Adelaide for help? It needs more help from you. Enter Charles Sturt, the guy the university franchise is named after, I think. Could have easily looked that up. Instead, I chose to look up this. Mr. Sturt was a British officer and explorer who was a classic child of the British Empire's bureaucratic middle class. So I'm imagining that he had one of those photos where you look at it and you think, are those dolls that have been brought to life? As opposed to that same era of working class kids' photos.
Hello, hello. You could mistake me for a 40-year-old you could.
His father worked as a judge in Bengal for the East India Company. He was sent to a British boarding school at the age of 5. He only just missed out on Cambridge thanks to his dad not having enough cash. And so like everyone else in that predicament, joined the army when you're too dumb for a scholarship. He showed up in Sydney escorting a boatload of convicts and thought, well, now that I'm here, hey, Governor of New South Wales, can you let me lead an expedition to chart the course of the Macquarie River? And the governor was like, yeah, okay. Wouldn't that be awesome? Being a Victorian-era explorer. Isn't it so much better having an exploratory job back then as opposed to having an exploratory job now? Now, it's important to note Australia was also in the middle of a drought, so it was hot. How hot are we talking? Well, according to Sturt, at one point on the journey, they recorded a temperature of 129 Fahrenheit in the shade and 149 Fahrenheit in the sun, which, for all those non-Americans watching, 54 degrees Celsius and 65 degrees Celsius respectively. Now, before any of you car profiles start typing. See? It was hotter back then. Calmly dismantled with calligraphy and mercury. They got those temperatures while they were standing in the middle of the bush on an 1820s thermometer. If these records were even close to accurate, 65 degrees would be 15 degrees hotter than the hottest temperature ever recorded in Australia, and 8 degrees hotter than the hottest ever recorded temperature in the world. So, yes, we can only conclude that it was hotter back then. Your suspicions are correct. Rowan Dean is smarter than everyone at the CSIRO and Weather Bureau combined. Thank God he wasn't alive to experience that weather, as I'm sure that his mummified skin would have caught on fire. Actually, maybe that's why he has mummified skin. I think that's him.
Hello, hello. What's all this Nitsy roading?
To give you an idea, in the same journal, Sturt mentions hearing an extraordinary sound that the party thought sounded like cannon firing that apparently came from the northwest of their current location, i.e. further inland from where they were. We never got an answer as to what that was. That's the end of that. So, quite an extraordinary journey. Not only had he endured the hottest day on record by a mile, but also he seems to have discovered that the French had settled in the middle of Australia somehow, presumably through a system of tunnels, and I guess their idea was to work their way to the coast? Why didn't they teach us that at school, eh? Anyway, it took them 2 months to make the journey from the end of the Macquarie River, where they discovered another river. It was the Darling River. I'll tell you, this entire story is funny and how anticlimactic it is. It's like history's version of a Flight of the Conchords episode. So the inland sea question remained unanswered. However, the governor had another river that he wanted Sturt to look into. So later that year, he set off to find the endpoint of the Murrumbidgee. This time, it took Sturt only about 14 days to get to the end because the river was big enough for them to leisurely sail a boat down. Isn't his life great? Paid to go on a mystery destination cruise. This time he found an even bigger river. It was the Murray River. That one flowed west too, so the team kept travelling westward, following the Murray until they came across the point where the Darling meets the Murray, and at that point, Sturt was fairly hyped. He wasn't convinced there actually was an inland sea, mind you, but he was definitely enjoying exploring these rivers, naming them, hanging out with the boys, racing the Union Jack, generally just having a really pleasant time. He was basically just the first of these c***s. That's a big fish, man. Eventually makes it all the way to the end of the Murray River, ending up in a big lake. Ooh, what a twist. I suppose that is the inland sea of Australia. Lake Alexandria. Naturally, to say that this discovery killed the vibe would be an understatement. They'd confirmed without any doubt that the end point of these massive rivers was not a huge inland sea, but a coastal lake that the British already knew about. Sturt immediately clocked where they were based on old coastal maps made by Matthew Flinders. The lake was also really shallow and didn't flow directly into the ocean, so it was useless for shipping or transportation. Basically, they traveled for 1,400 kilometers, made no practical discoveries, and now had to make it back to Sydney against the river, having used up most of their supplies. To make a long story short, they worked their way back up the Murray and the Murrumbidgee, rowing their boats against the currents, hoping the wind would blow in the right direction and occasionally having to drag the boat over the shallow bits. It was so grim that they were blasting parrots out of the air to eat, which apparently reminded Sturt of how few new species they'd also discovered on the trip. This is the furthest thing from exotic. You think that would be the end of the lame disappointments, right? Wrong. 15 years later, a now almost 50-year-old man Sturt, who tried to make a name for himself in the new colony of South Australia and ended up not doing that and losing a bunch of money in the process, decided, actually, you know what, fuck you. There is an inland sea, and I'm going to find it by exploring the desert. He somehow got that approved. I think it was because he picked a fight with the governor of South Australia, so the governor thought, okay, here, just get out of here. And they travelled north along the Darling River, where he figured he'd find the inland sea at its endpoint. It hit about December, and now we spend our entire Christmas in airtime. Imagine how hot that would have been in 65 degrees Celsius time, guys. They started running out of water. Some of the men got scurvy. It all started going to shit pretty quickly, and they were stuck camping by the one creek that hadn't dried up for 6 months until they were saved by heavy rains. Which, if you know anything about inland Australia, this is what you would note as the true surprising twist in this story. You know what Sturt decided to do after that? He decided to head further inland. Oh, I really wanted there to be a sea at the end, just so he could end up being one of those men of destiny we always mythologize about battling against the odds, but instead it's everyone thought he was crazy, but this is one of those 99.9% of stories where they are just crazy. Obviously his party were begging him, please can we go back? I'm sick of drinking mud. To which Sturt said, no! More mud! Powered on! Got to the edge of the Simpson Desert! And that's where Sturt finally conceded, okay, there's not going to be an inland sea. Also, I have scurvy. Somehow Sturt survived the return trip and retired back to England, where he became an official Australia expert, which I suppose he was qualified for. After all, he was the most qualified man in the world to determine that there is fuck all here. And it was on that trip that I successfully determined parrots are a poor substitute for chicken. Anywho, that's it then. There's no inland sea. We've settled the whole thing. Charles Sturt nearly killed himself 3 times to prove this point. However, plan B, make the inland sea ourselves. Base and late Cretaceous Europe here. Finally, we're at the point of the video where we can actually talk about some of the real, true Blue Aussie shit, which is a bunch of guys looking at someone else try anything and say,
What a fucking idiot. Just do what I reckon. Someone with no expertise at all.
And a John Bradfield, otherwise known as the guy who designed the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So yeah, he was a visionary, but come on, that is quite a haunting ambition. I have brought land over the ocean. Now ocean will come over the land. It is movie villain epic, I'll give it that. Queensland seriously considered it in the 30s. Pretty much every party in Australian politics is supported it at one point or another. And it's still supported by some of the most preeminent thinkers of today, like the Queensland LNP, Barnaby Joyce, Pauline Hanson. And of course, if these two are on the list, not far behind is everyone's favourite leb. Yeah! A sea's just a bit gay! All the most fried still think this is a mad idea. I don't know how they think it's going to work, but frankly, figuring out how any of them think on anything is a matter for neuroscience. But back in the day, the idea was to dam the Tully River, divert that into the Herbert River, dam the Herbert River, and then divert that into the Burdekin River, dam the Burdekin River and divert that into the Flinders River, divert the Flinders River into the Thompson River, and then BAM! Got yourself a big-ass lake. This would have brought more water into central and southeast Queensland and allowed farmers across the inland of Australia to grow way more crops such as rice, cotton, flax, jute, whatever that is, wheat, tropical fruits. Oh, you could grow anything there, apparently. Orchids to cacti. Do like the enthusiasm. I do think this is also another man thing where we all have that one idea that we're overly optimistic about, don't we? This really seems to be the I have an idea for an app of rural Australia. Seems like a good idea, so why didn't we build this giant Fruit Loops and Wheat Beaks depot after all? Plan isn't too dissimilar from the Snowy Mountain scheme. I'm guessing it had something to do with the fact that unlike the Snowy Mountain scheme, it was, quote, physically impossible. Turns out that Bradfield committed the classic engineering blunder of vastly overestimating the amount of rainfall going into these rivers that he wanted to avert. He thought, yeah, we'll just assume that it gets double the amount of rainfall that it does, which, if they did, would mean that there'd be no need for the fucking inland sea to begin with. And yet the dream lives on in the minds of the next generation of scientific visionaries. The Curious Three! The CSIRO actually tried explaining to them yet again, guys, this isn't going to work. And we have the direct response from Whatta to that.
That irritates me, and I punch blokes in the mouth for saying that.
The CSIRO were trying to explain that these rivers get even less rainfall now due to climate change. But when have these three ever been foolish enough to trust an institution captured by climate alarmists? And so they push on. Well, not really. I think they just entertain their voter base's delusions, probably in pubs. But what's the moral of this story? Well, first of all, the idea that we can make an inland sea is still up for debate. The CSIRO reckons it can't be done. Big Footy Forums reckons it can. I'll let you have the captain's call on that one. Second, everyone on the crossbench is a fucking idiot. They all push some stupid, impossible idea to make some fringe of society go, yeah, just do that, ignoring 100 years of science, while Labor's trying to negotiate very complicated water agreements in the Murray-Darling to make sure we preserve the most important water system in the country. You've got Bob Whatta yelling in their ear, just make a big inland sea! I want to grow rice in the desert! And look, even while I'm saying it dismissively, it would be sick. So I say, who gives a shit what 100 years of brainiac bean counters think? The Bush knows best! Sure, it didn't work when the Russians did it. In fact, it destroyed an entire inland sea and caused one of the largest ever man-made environmental disasters. But Australia's got that digger spirit. We'll make that Antipodean Mediterranean a reality. At least in the process, we'd make some nutty Queensland farmers happy. And after all, isn't that what Australian politics is all about? Sadly, yes. And final moral of the story, take it from a legendary Australian pioneer. Sometimes you can commit yourself completely to a goal, nearly kill yourself in the process. Everyone can tell you you're crazy. You are insane for believing. But if you persevere,
We got the 250 for that round.
On parts of social media, it has become a familiar sight. Shaky phone footage, often shot at night and accompanied by a soundtrack of creative Russian swearing, showing the view from a random apartment building in the arse end of nowhere. As the clip plays, there's a boom. Maybe a flash of light, or even a fireball, or maybe there's just the distant ominous glow of flames rising up into the night sky. So, no. These aren't candid images of another Chelyabinsk event. Rather, they're testimony to a concerted wartime strategy planned and executed hundreds of kilometers away. A Ukrainian plan to hit Russia where it hurts the most, their oil refining capacity. You see, since August, Russian refineries have been pummeled with drones. 16 out of the nation's 38 refineries have so far been struck. Of those, at least 5 have been hit more than once, with one in Volgograd being struck 4 times in 2 months. By early October, between 4 and 5 such attacks were being reported every week. As The Economist noted, quote, soon they will be daily. At this point,
kind of
some of you may be wondering if this
just ran and
in the Matrix. Didn't we already see a Ukrainian deep strike campaign on Russian oil refineries? The difference between now and the springtime campaign of 2024, though, is one of intensity. Last year, Kiev was only able to strike 2 refineries with any regularity, Krasnodar and Rostov, because they're close to the border. And the explosive payloads the drones carried were far smaller.
Damn it.
Now, though, those drones are repeatedly hitting refineries like Salavat in Bashkortostan, which is over 1,400 kilometers away from Ukraine. As Sergei Vakalenko writes in Carnegie Politica, now Ukrainian drones can fly further, carry bigger payloads, and attack more frequently. The refinery attacks part of a wider deep strike campaign the Ukrainians unleashed at the start of August, one that is also targeted
That molten shielded
weapons
word,
manufacturers and oil pipelines.
plus tanks being
And now
busted.
a quick word from our sponsor, me, or more precisely, my website, fronts.co. Have you ever found yourself thinking, there's just not enough content on Warfront. 6 videos a week is just not enough for me. I want the world to be crazier. I want more war, more death. Well, 1, what's wrong with you? And 2, well, great news. Extra Warfronts content is now at your fingertips over at fronts.co. Look at that. Look at that. Yes, starting this very week, we'll be posting 2 exclusive videos every week to our new subscriber-only website, fronts.co. For just $5 a month, you'll gain access to brand new Warfronts content that won't be available on YouTube. Our first videos are already up, exploring topics as timely as whether Poland could win a war against Russia, and as timeless as how South Korea came to build the best tank on Earth. And to sweeten the deal, we're also asking our writers to contribute 2 in-depth written articles each week, exploring some unusual or less appreciated angle on geopolitics and warfare. So, not only will you get more of the videos you love, you'll also get a chance to read some of our writers' unfiltered takes on war news. So look, if you like this channel, you'll love fronts.co. Again, $5 a month. It helps support us here at Fronts, Warfronts, Political Fronts, and fronts.co. And nothing is changing here. I have learned from the mistakes of past YouTubers. We are not doing a paywall on any existing content. The 6 videos a week will be here for you just as before. It's all just gravy, baby! Don't know why I went all Austin Powers there, but yeah, fronts.co. Just go there. Good domain, right? It was expensive. But it's the strikes on Russia's oil refining capacity that have proven most impactful. Reuters estimates that at least 17% of that capacity is now offline, with some estimates going as high as 38%, although there are good reasons to be wary of such rosy figures. Either way, at least 1 million barrels a day are currently being lost, and that will only increase as more refineries are targeted for repeat attacks, which make damage harder to repair. The impact's already visible on the Russian home front. According to the Financial Times, wholesale prices of petrol have surged by more than 40% since January, with the strikes leading to shortages. Local outlet Kommersant reported that September saw a shortfall of 400,000 tons of petrol out of the 2 million regularly delivered. And that's led to problems. Not everywhere, and not equally distributed, but visible, undeniable problems nonetheless. As is always the case in wartime Russia, these problems have hit the periphery hardest. The Far East and southern central regions were the first to suffer, with about 14% of filling stations in Russia's south being forced to shutter. In other areas, the pro-government newspaper Izvestia reports drivers being limited to only 10 or 20 litres of petrol. Speaking to the BBC, one station owner declared that his industry, quote, haven't had a crisis like this since hyperinflation in 1993 to 1994. But nothing comes close to the problems being reported in occupied Crimea. There, a full 50% of petrol stations have run dry, with the rest implementing rationing. Now, before you get the impression that this is some sort of societal collapse, we should be clear about what sectors are not being affected. The shortages only concern petrol, not diesel. And that's important because diesel is the fuel that runs not only tanks on the battlefield, but also most of the agricultural sector. So there's currently zero chance that this will spiral either into a food crisis or a scenario where military vehicles on the front lines grind to a halt. Different regions are also experiencing the crisis in very different ways. When the BBC spoke to people around Moscow, many seemed unaware that there was a fuel shortage in other parts of the country. And while some problems have been reported at stations around St. Petersburg's Rin Road, the general trend seems to be that the richer western regions are being sheltered from the impact. Still, the regions that are being hit hard. While it's small and independent petrol station owners who are suffering the most, even the big conglomerates are having difficulties. In Astrakhan Oblast in the south, even some Gazprom stations are running dry. You can see the effects just by looking at industry-related statistics and official statements. In September, petrol imports from Belarus to Russia rose 168%. That same month, the Kremlin extended a ban on petrol exports and implemented a new one on diesel exports.
Should we use an HMO or a POS or
PPO?
maybe add an FSA?
Or HRA.
We can add an HSA.
Go ahead.
I think we should try PHP.
When it comes to health coverage, there's only 3 letters you need to know. PHP.
However, we should point out that statistics will only get you so far. After the 2024 strike campaign, the government classified the production figures, meaning there's a lot of uncertainty around the precise impact of these refineries going up in flames. And that makes evaluating the effectiveness of all of this nearly impossible. In his piece for Carnegie Politica, Sergei Vakulenko points out that the amount of production capacity taken offline is not a static thing. Stricken refineries are repaired, new refineries are hit, and even the ones hit multiple times may have a lot of backup and spare capacity. Just to quote him on a relevant example, Russian refineries tend to have surplus primary distilling capacity and bottlenecks when it comes to secondary treatment and conversion units turning distillates into market-grade fuel. Therefore, the destruction of one or two identical atmospheric distillation columns in a refinery is more likely to lead to a 30% drop in gasoline production, not 50%, as you might expect. And don't worry if you're now thinking, well, what the fuck is an atmospheric distillation column, Simon? The important part of all of this isn't to grasp the mechanics of the oil industry, just to understand that damaging its capacity is a bit more complex than just drone hits building, building goes boom. It also depends what part of the refinery is hit. The Economist points out that some pieces of equipment are easier to replace than others. We'll quote them here. The destruction of the cracking units that break down crude oil into petrol, diesel, and aviation fuel is a major difficulty because they are very costly and because the sanctions regime makes them extremely hard to replace. So, each strike on a refinery has a lot of variables that will affect its overall impact. And it also depends on whether a given refinery is being struck for the first or second or even third time. The more hits, the harder it becomes to repair, and the more likely it is to lose production capacity over a longer time. Nor is war a one-way street. We've recently seen Russia step up its own attacks on Ukraine's gas production facilities. Engelsberg Ideas has suggested that in a war of deep strikes, Moscow is more likely to prevail. We'll quote them here. Moscow's forces are systematically chewing up Ukraine's electricity, transport, oil refinery, and communication systems much faster than Ukraine is able to do the same. End quote. But that doesn't mean you should expect Ukraine's latest strike campaign to stop. Far from it. In fact, there are grounds to believe that Kyiv is only just getting started. You remember a few weeks ago when those Russian drones intruded into Polish airspace? As we and many other outlets noted at the time, the incursion revealed a worrying gap in European air defenses, whereby multi-million-dollar interceptors were needed to down weapons that only cost the Kremlin tens of thousands of dollars. Well, that's true for Europe, but it's also true for Russia. Most of the recent strikes on refineries have been carried out by Firepoint FP1 drones, which cost a mere $55,000. Even given the fact that multiple drones are shot down for every one that gets through, that still means the Ukrainians are paying close to zero for attacks that can cost the Russians millions and millions. And carrying out successful strikes is remarkably easy. The issue for Moscow is that their country is, well, really, really big. They've got a lot of refineries, and they've only got limited air defense assets. As the Atlantic Council writes of the wider deep strike campaign, quoting them, the Kremlin simply does not have enough air defense systems to protect thousands of potential military and energy targets spread across 11 time zones. In short, this is a cost-effective, relatively easy campaign that has the potential to offer outsized returns. As President Zelensky told reporters in August, quote, "The most effective sanctions, the ones that work the fastest, are the fires at Russia's oil refineries, its terminals, oil depots." This speaks to what has become one of Ukraine's core theories of victory, that crippling the economy and making ordinary people feel the pain will force Putin to negotiate. Back in 2024, military intelligence chief Kirilo Budanov asserted that Russia needed to win the war by early 2026 or the Kremlin would face an economic crisis. In the event, while there are clear signs the Russian economy is under strain, issues don't appear to be mounting as fast as Kyiv hoped. The strike campaign, then, can be seen as an attempt to hurry those problems along, to force the Kremlin to make unpleasant trade-offs sooner rather than later. Remember, for all the talk online about Russia's massive tolerance for pain, harkening back to the colossal losses it kept fighting through in World War II, the reality is that Putin is sensitive to public opinion. After the partial mobilization of autumn 2022 caused his popularity to reach one of its lowest ever levels, the Kremlin has taken great pains to avoid another round. At the same time, it has tried its best to shield the elite of cities like Moscow from the effects of the war, while also paying such large bonuses to volunteers from the regions that many once neglected areas are now experiencing economic booms. So the TLDR version is that Putin isn't a guy who likes hard decisions, because he likes being popular. And with these strikes, Ukraine is trying to force him into making unpopular trade-offs. To be clear, those trade-offs are still some way away. Russia can still import from China and Belarus. It has stockpiles it can dip into. Fuel quality standards can be lowered. Petrol rationing could be extended to parts of the nation that are currently unaffected. At the moment, the campaign is more of a costly annoyance and an embarrassment to the Kremlin than any sort of existential threat. And we need to emphasize that some believe it may stay that way. Speaking to The Telegraph, Rusi analyst Emily Ferris noted that while the strikes are a source of major frustration for Moscow, at this stage, quote, the situation is not critical. Russia has enough oil and gas reserves and financial reserves to push through this inconvenience, and the goal of subjugating Ukraine is much more of a valued prize. And look, she's not the only one. Writing in Engelsberg Ideas, Owen Matthews points out that Ukraine's economy is 1/10 the size of Russia's, adds that its own infrastructure and energy are taking a pummeling. In his own words, under present circumstances, a Ukrainian economic and military collapse still remains likelier than a Russian one. However, not everyone agrees with these takes. For other analysts, the important thing isn't what the strike campaign is achieving today, but what it might accomplish in the near future. Part of this is the increasing tempo we mentioned earlier. From a couple of strikes a week in August, Ukraine has gone on to hitting targets up to 4 or 5 times a week. Should the attacks become a daily occurrence, a lot more refineries may wind up sustaining damage that takes a long time and a lot of expense to repair. And then there's the unknown factor of Ukraine's new, domestically produced cruise missile, the FP5 Flamingo. A relatively crude weapon, it's unable to pull off the truly complex maneuvers that make some of Russia's best missiles so tricky to intercept. But the goal seems to be to make up for the likely high shoot-down rate with 2 things: cheap mass production and an insanely large warhead. Clocking in at over 1,000 kilograms, the Flamingo's warhead is, to use a technical term, fucking massive. It's twice the size of a Tomahawk's, and while the Tomahawk is far more stealthy and cutting edge, Kiev's hope seems to be that it can produce enough Flamingos at an affordable cost to ensure that those massive warheads occasionally make it through to strike their targets. To quote the Atlantic Council again, if Kiev reaches its goal of mass-produced long-range cruise missiles, the consequences for Russia's refineries, ports, and pipelines could be catastrophic. Now look, the Flamingo isn't slated to go into mass production until the end of the year, but even until the point it can be routinely used to strike Russian infrastructure, Kiev can still dial up the pressure. If more refineries start being struck, and more of those are struck repeatedly, well then the problems for the Kremlin will start to mount. Here's Sergei Vakilenko one more time. Russia's oil refineries are a bit like a man who is being repeatedly punched. He will not die from one punch, or even half a dozen punches, but it becomes harder and harder for him to recover after each subsequent blow. Although no single punch is fatal, he could end up being beaten to death. And again, look, we need to emphasize that any sort of crisis for Russia is still a long way off. The likelihood that you check the news tomorrow and see a story about Putin being lynched by angry Russian drivers is remote, but that's also not the goal. The Ukrainian goal, as far as we can tell, is to keep increasing the pressure on a Russian economy that's already flashing some warning signs. An economy that's feeling the strain even as the strain on the front line also grows. Just a couple of days ago, a leaked Russian document appeared to show that Moscow saw 87,000 troops killed in action between January and September of this year. That is not casualties, which typically includes the wounded, the missing, and soldiers who died away from the battlefield due to other causes, but killed in action. By way of comparison, the United States saw slightly under 41,000 troops killed in action in the entire Vietnam War. Moscow lost over double that in a mere 9 months of fighting. Those numbers are unsustainable, at least without a massively unpopular general mobilization. And we can already see the impact this is having in recruitment officers. After years in which ever-growing sign-up bonuses kept a steady stream of troops coming to the front, the first reports are coming in of regions struggling to meet their recruitment targets. Again, things are far from crisis levels here, but Ukraine's gamble is that massive losses on a front line that is only moving forwards at a glacial pace, combined with mounting strikes on critical homeland infrastructure, might be enough to cause Putin to throw in the towel and cut a peace deal. Will it work? Who knows? The last 3.5 years of war have shown that many assumptions about Putin's threshold for pain have been proven wrong. The West gambled on massive sanctions to bring him to the table. The Ukrainians tried to turn the war into another Afghanistan, hoping to kill so many Russian soldiers that families would pressure Putin into ending the war. Both of those theories of victory turned out to be flawed. And who's to say that today's long-range strikes on oil refineries won't go the same way? But the fact is that Ukraine's latest campaign is having an impact, one that's starting to trickle through to ordinary Russians. Whether that's enough to finally cause Putin to call a halt to his war of conquest is just something we'll have to wait and see. Thank you for watching. Just before we continue, have you ever thought about how to rebuild civilization from scratch? No? Well, maybe you should. What's the first thing you'd reinvent? The wheel? Electricity? The printing press? Show those off to people. You'd be like, look at this. I made a wheel. People, what is the how? It's so fast. Well, that's where the book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding Civilization, comes in. Check this out. This thing is an absolute beast. This arrived by the FedEx man. And the people who made this, who sponsored this, they were like, we're going to send you the book. And I'm like, okay, cool, 400 pages. I was expecting like a novel-sized thing. Nope. This thing is massive. And look, this isn't your typical history book. I really feel like if I was going to make a book, like a book for my channels or whatever, this is what I'd make. It's just dope. You open it to any page. Oh, this is what I'd like. How to make wine. Is that, forget the wheel, forget electricity and the printing press. That's what I want. A fine beverage that warms the body and heals the soul, although every drop of wine is made from fermented grape juice. Not just any grape is worthy of becoming a wine, you goddamn right. So not only that, you'll be making good wine. I'll open this at a random page. It will have a beautiful illustration. I'll open it at another random page. It will have a beautiful illustration. It's full of cool information and beautiful illustrations, 400 pages of it. I look forward to taking this home and showing it to my kids, even though they won't understand it. But they'll like looking at the pictures. Look, this isn't your typical history book. It's 400 pages. It's like a beautifully illustrated, look at fridge, how to make a fridge. It's really cool. It's beautifully illustrated. I'm way off the talking points. And a heat pump? You're making an energy efficient fridge. Wait, all fridges run off heat pumps? I've had this sitting by my desk for like the last couple of weeks, and I'll just pick it up and I'll just open it to a random page. In fact, I've looked at this mining page before. And there's always something interesting. It's a mix between engineering blueprints and medieval art, except way cooler. This was a Kickstarter project originally, raised $3.2 million. And it did that because it's awesome. Then it became a bestseller, so that's cool. High quality handmade illustrations, clever paper engineering. This is a book that is just a bit special. So use the link in the description below. Use my code MEGAPROJECT10 for a discount. Go grab the book. You won't regret it. You just have to sit by your desk for ages, and you'll just enjoy diving into it. I promise it's great. And now back to today's video.
Team Sentinel, Wonder Round.
We got him, coach.
Vladimir Putin is escalating, and this time...
Did you see OpenAI 10% stake in AMD? Yeah, dude. Can we chart this out real quick? OpenAI is buying a ton of GPUs from AMD while at the same time taking a 10% stake in them. So we've got what? We got NVIDIA putting money into OpenAI, who's putting money into AMD. NVIDIA at the same time is putting money into Intel. So now the three so-called competitors in the chip-making business in America are all incestuously connected by financial relationships. It's so deeply incestuous. All of these companies are, all three of them actually are TSMC for Foundry. OpenAI again is like the money they're giving to get the stake in AMD is like they're promising to buy data center capacity. So AMD has to build out data centers, hundreds of billions for money that OpenAI doesn't really have yet. Hey, I thought about making this a separate clip, but I think I'll just add it here to this one because it's so relevant. The scale of this is what's kind of crazy. This AMD deal is individually interesting. We'll talk about it more in a second. If we zoom out a bit, OpenAI's deals, computing deals that it's now promised money for, tops $1 trillion in money that they have promised to NVIDIA and Oracle and CoreWeave and now AMD.
Can't believe we lost
they go
that.
to
That's
everybody
crazy.
in Silicon Valley who can give them compute, data centers, GPUs, and they're promising them money and saying, build us out more data centers. But it's money they don't have. Look, nowhere near the capital required to fund these plans. OpenAI is in no position to make any of these commitments. They're going to lose $10 billion this year, but they're promising $1 trillion in money they don't have. Part of Silicon Valley's fake it till you make it ethos is to get people to have skin in the game. And basically what I was saying with that incestuous web earlier is that OpenAI has basically gone to everybody and made them reliant on OpenAI surviving to pay the bills to keep their stock up based on promises that OpenAI has made publicly. And I'll get back to, let's get specific here. Let me go back to how weird this AMD deal is, okay? By the way, this AMD deal, Lisa Su, CEO of AMD, described it as pretty innovative. I wouldn't say it came lightly. The unique warrant structure to the deal. Again, we talked about this in a previous video. Sam Altman has really gone all in on not engineering, but financial engineering. And this is a very innovative bit of financial engineering. OpenAI wants AMD to make, let's say, this is an estimate number, right? Roughly $70 billion worth of compute for them. AMD's like, all right, give us money. OpenAI goes, we don't have the money, so let's figure something out. So here's what they do. OpenAI will give you $70 billion of money it doesn't really have, and then AMD will give you back stock, 10% of the company, which is currently valued at around $34 billion. However, because this has an announcement associated with it, holy shit, OpenAI and AMD are partnering and they're gonna build $70 billion worth of compute, announcement, that it caused AMD's stock to spike. So if AMD's stock continues to rise, this $34 billion could easily become around $70 billion, which means if OpenAI sells that stock, they essentially got the GPUs and stuff for free. They get $70 billion worth of stock to buy $70 billion worth of goods. No real money is changing hands. OpenAI isn't actually spending anything, but they're getting the real compute. How are they doing this? It's all from the outside investors. They're basically making a big leveraged bet that news announcements around AI will cause stock prices to rise. That is what is going on here. I think I distilled this in a previous video, but this one is the most concrete, direct example. Like, OpenAI is only able to have this money if this stock goes up in value, and the only reason that happens is because they know the announcement will do that. I don't want to harp on it too much, but this is like the gist of what they're doing with CoreWeave and with Oracle and with NVIDIA in roundabout ways. It all feels tenuous. But Jeff Bezos has a different thought. Let's talk about it. So Jeff Bezos says we are in a bubble, but it's a good bubble.
The second thing that happens when people get very excited, as they are today about artificial intelligence, for example, is every experiment gets funded. The good ideas and the bad ideas. And investors have a hard time in the middle of this excitement distinguishing between the good ideas and the bad ideas. But it doesn't mean that anything that's happening isn't real. AI is real. And it is going to change every industry. In fact, it's a very unusual technology in that regard. There are so many startup companies that are kind of AI companies of various kinds. And that's normal for this phase. But that is not the biggest impact that AI is going to have. The biggest impact that AI is going to have is it is going to affect every company in the world. It is going to make their quality go up and their productivity go up. But the great thing about industrial bubbles, this is a kind of industrial bubble, as opposed to financial bubbles, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you go back, like the 90s had a biotech bubble, and there were a bunch of pharma startup companies that were designing drugs and using new techniques, and the world got very excited. The investment world got very excited. As a group, they all lost money, but we did get a couple of life-saving drugs. A bubble like a banking bubble, a crisis in the banking system, that's just bad. That's like 2008. And so those bubbles society wants to avoid. The ones that are industrial are not nearly as bad. It could even be good, because when the dust settles and you see who are the winners, society benefits from those inventions.
Okay, so this is the key part, is he's making the argument that this could be a good bubble, an industrial bubble, because all of the money being thrown around is helping AI speed up and get built and getting the ground layer created. And once the valuations deflate, we'll have made some progress. This could very well be true. I think Jeff Bezos is a smart guy. I have criticisms of making employees pee in bottles, but I don't think he's stupid. The problem is, there's so much going on in that when the dust settles. He says it in one line, and maybe for a billionaire, that is one line. But when the dust settles, is, the entire stock market of America is propped up on this AI spend. The 401ks and retirements of like every median American is propped up on this. When the dust settles is them losing all of their collective wealth. If that valuations were to normalize, would be such a disaster, not only to the stock market and the retirements, but there's so many, like, again, our economy right now is propped up by the top end of that K. People that are spending, basically like 10% of Americans, 20% of Americans are well over half of all of the spending. If the rich people in America, or the well-off people in America, stop traveling and spending, there's nothing left. The economy is falling apart. And so they are only spending because of the wealth effect of their stocks. They feel wealthy because their stocks are up and their housing is up. When those crash, they stop spending. So he's just talking about it like it's nothing. Like it's like, well, whatever. At the end of the day, we'll have a bunch of GPUs. You know, it's like, well, if this is a massive misallocation of capital and this is a bubble, then the interim pain is going to be severe. It could have political effects. People become more radicalized in a recessionary environment. It's not that I disagree that AI will be world changing. And it's not that I disagree that in the long term, it will have big impacts on all businesses. I actually agree with most of the things he's saying. It's just that he's so cavalier about like, yeah, if it's a bubble, who knows? Okay, it'll be good. You're flashing forward. I mean, even people lost their savings in 01. Canada, Canada had when Nortel was wiped out for Canada, they had long-lasting pain for decades afterwards. People were hurt for that for years. So I feel like he's being too cavalier.
The benefits to society from AI are going to be gigantic.
And if we go back 25 years ago, when the internet was in that bubblish moment, no one would have predicted a lot of the industrial benefits of that industrial bubble. And the fiber, huge investments that were put in infrastructure.
It's a perfect example that all of that fiber optic cable that got laid, and by the way, the companies who laid all that cable went out of business.
Yeah, okay. He's so excited about it. He's so gleeful. It's just so funny because, yes, this happened, but in the moment, it was, so painful. It was, so deeply, people lost their savings. It was a big, it's crazy. He's just yeah. And a lot of these companies, what he's implying there is that some of these companies that are building it, the web we just pointed out, the GPU web, could go out of business. Or the OpenAI layer, whatever, they could go out of business. And that would be such a shock to the market. I want to do a quick follow-up on Sora real quick. It's not big enough to be a clip, so I don't want to say it forever. Saw a couple more Sora videos. Some of them did make me laugh. I'll just be dead honest. Here's the thing. Every Sora video I've seen is off platform. So it's just ripped off and put on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter. So they're making no money on it. So this is already failing. But then Sam Altman came out and said, uh-oh, people are making way more Sora videos than we thought. It's all costing us money. We haven't made any money yet. They literally, he just said this. Two things he said. This is pretty funny. Sora update 1. We've been learning quickly from how people are using Sora and taking feedback from users, right holders, and other interested groups. Because if you remember in my first video about it, I was like, hey, the way they're doing copyright makes no sense. Having an opt-in, or I'm sorry, an opt-out program for copyright violations is not legal. And Sam Altman and his team figured that out pretty quick. We're gonna make 2 changes soon. First, we will give rights holders more granular control over generation of characters, similar to the opt-in model for likeness, but with additional controls. They're changing it. We're hearing from a lot of rights holders who are very excited. No, you're not. You're hearing from a lot of lawyers. From a lot of lawyers. I think the WWE freaked out. The WWE had all of its lawyers on